What up, anyone who is watching me, and thank you for joining me. I'm going to be making some dice, and I've had some folks tell me, hey, you should totally stream yourself doing it. And finally I said, all right, cool. We got this little dice station set up, and I've been trying to figure out a way where I could get a camera set up and a microphone, so camera may not be in the perfect spot, and microphone may sound like shit, but hey, we're here, and that's what matters. So shout out to 911 Girl, shout out to Captain Fake Guy, shout out to the Snark for joining me on my first ever try at making dice live. Shout out to Lizard Tree as well. It's awesome to see that there's actually some folks here, which is super cool. So my computer that is streaming what is happening right now is technically behind me. I have a little chat window in front of me, so I'm going to be able to see what you folks say. I'll have to look over there and scroll it here and there, so I might get stuff on my hands. It might take me a minute to respond to you. That said, I'll get back to everyone. So Robin was instrumental in encouraging me to do this, and she is not here, I don't think, so maybe she will show up. But before that, let me go ahead and give you folks a tour of what this workstation looks like. So obviously I got a bunch of stuff here. There's some stuff you guys can't see. Deliberately, like the microphone and the 3 lights I have set up just beaming down on this area. I have 100 mica powders right up here that you can't see. You guys can see some of the glitters that I have, but it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 15 different types of glitter. So lots of stuff. I have a bunch of stuff over here that's just mixing utensils, but I don't want to focus too much on what my setup looks like, even though I'm proud of it. I figure anything I'm doing that's going to be right here is more important than any of the stuff I have off to the side. Yeah, so I'm going to take some stuff out of my pressure pot, and we're going to check and see how it went. I'm hoping it went well. I'm not sure if it did, though, so I did way too much yesterday. Shout out to Enzo Matrix. Thank you for joining me as well. Snark said that his phone just died. No worries. But yeah, I tried to make 2 different full sets of dice molds and a set of dice, and resin and silicone all have what's called a pot life, which if you look on here it says it's 25 minutes. I don't know if you can read that well, probably not, but basically it meant that I had to mix all those things, which each take 5 minutes to mix, and get them poured within 25 minutes before my silicone would start to set. So I basically got everything set up so that my molds were ready to receive silicone. Did my resin, because that has a longer pot life, I believe, of 45 minutes. Poured my resin, set them off to the side, then mixed up as much silicone as I thought I needed based on my calculations, which were horribly wrong. So I had to mix up silicone twice more. So I'm telling you this because I'm about to open this pressure pot, and when I do, what's inside may all be massive failures. But hey, I'm here to learn. So my phone is right over here, so if you see me stretching across, it's so that I can read what you folks are saying, and I'm not just a crazy person. Faces, are you going to use any of the dice you make in your games? In fact, I plan on it. I have some D20s that are over here that are basically just experiments, and then I have some extra resin sometimes when I'm making dice, so I'll toss some into an extra mold I have off to the side so that I can see which ink looks best. Is it bronze? Is it gold? And so I always wind up having an extra D20 or so. I figured if I ever wind up doing conventions, I'll just have them in a pot and sell them for $1 each or something. But in the meantime, I'll probably use them when I'm actually running games. It's kind of funny because after this, I have some more storyline to write for the first one-shot for Scarish, which we're doing tomorrow. Faye is a part of it. Very, very excited. I really hope you guys like it. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be funny. If you guys don't like it, you guys suck. I still have dice that I need to polish and ink. I'm not going to do that on this particular session, but I will show you what they look like. So I was trying to get a gold on this one, and it came out looking more like honey, and it's kind of gross. I don't really like it that much. Robin likes it, though, and I think if I painted it, it can actually look good. I decided to make Master Sword dice, so I did this weird blue with some golden flecks in it, and I figured I would ink the letters silver, like a gunmetal silver, like the Master Sword. And that actually came out the exact color I wanted it to, so I'm really proud of those. And then I just did these ones, and these ones are... I didn't really know what I was going for. I just wanted to sort of use these mica flakes that I have, which are rainbow flakes, like unicorn flakes. Like if unicorns had dandruff, this is what it would look like. Also, it fucking gets everywhere, but I just got this in. I decided I wanted to do a pretty color that could showcase that stuff inside. And I made these like Tahitian teal, and I don't know if you can see it sparkle very well, but they came out pretty good. So, and I rolled it too, so that's not a good sign. But I do need to polish those and ink them, which is coming later. Maybe off camera because that shit's boring as fuck. So yeah, let's open this pressure pot, see what I got in there. I'm going to move my phone closer to me so that I can see what you guys are saying without reaching so far over. It's weird because I have this tiny little window because Restream does not have an app for your phone where you can actually go and see. So like, this is what my phone screen looks like. Like this is the tiny little area where I can see your chitter chatter, and it won't let me like adjust it. If you try and do it in like mobile mode, it doesn't show it, so it's just fucking worthless. But all right, Enzomatrix says we need some emotes for this channel. Robin said she would make them. That's very sweet. Kenneth Vegas says, "Ooh yes, need the unicorn dandruff." And Robin says the desk looks so good. It should. It's your desk. I'm gonna do this exact setup with my current desk when we move. And then I'm going to buy a new desk because I want to get something that's more of a standing adjustable desk and less, you know, fancy like the one we have now. So, all right, enough talking. Let's open this pressure pot. I also had the idea for a set for tonight, and I decided that I'm going to let you guys decide what colors I'm going to use, and then the next time I stream, I'll take it out of the pot, and you guys can decide what color I should ink them. So that'll be fun. But for tonight, let's start by looking at what we have from yesterday. And yeah, so when you open this pressure pot, it's very loud. All right. So this thing is screwed down by 4 wing nuts, and it is airtight. And I set it to 42 PSI last night at 6 p.m. And I set it to 42 because they usually say between 35 and 40. And sometimes this loses just a tiny bit of pressure. So I'm down to 40 right now. When I first got it, I wasn't tightening these down enough. And when I did that, it would get down to like 35. It did not hurt the dice at all. And I did a 48-hour cure time for a set just to see what would happen. And it came up pretty much the same. But when I did that, it lost about 5 PSI that time. So I've just been doing slightly over 40 every time. So what do you guys want? Do you want me to show you how loud this thing is? Or just mute my mic while I just let the pressure out of it? I'm really happy that I'm realizing now that the chat shows up on the screen. So I can actually look at the screen and read it too, which makes things a whole lot easier. Snark says, "Pop, can I use the Instapot?" Which says, "Pop that sucker." Snark says, "Open that bitch." Alright, I am going to go ahead and switch over on my phone where I can mute this if it's too loud, which is going to be. I hear some alerts going off, so shout out. Shout out to Enzomatrix for following. And shout out to Robin Grace for donating 300 bits. I need to figure out how to get my notifications on my phone better. Alright. Here we go. I'm going to be ready to mute this in case it's too loud, which it's almost certainly going to be. It's going really slow. All right. The time you could hear it, it lost like 4 PSI and it was still that loud. I usually just open the valve all the way, plug my ears, and wait 5 seconds, which is what we did. So, all right, cool. Just got to take these off. So, there's a lot of stuff that I've done off camera just because I wasn't sure I wanted to stream myself figuring stuff out because it's been a lot of trial and error. And, it's been pretty boring, to be honest. Like, I'm cool with like having a hobby where I just sit around and figure stuff out. There's a channel called Ribonator who makes dice on YouTube. He's amazing. he recommended customizing a pressure pot for about half the price of what this one cost. Actually, I think it was like 2/3 the price. So I followed his instructions, and that night was like a night from hell. And when I was done, it did not work. Like, no matter what I did, I could not get it to work. So I wound up just finding one that was already set up for resin. And I'm so happy that I did. This one, I think, is a California Air. And they have some really high quality shit. I really like this. I'm going to start decorating it with stickers. I have so many stickers from all the cons we do. So enough talking. Inside is this multi-tiered basic like stand that I made, because the bottom of this has like a little rounded spot to it, and I don't want my dice like tipping over into it. So I just took some rounds and some dowels that look like this, and it's something that I learned on Ribinator's channel to create something that would sit inside this pot perfectly. This is a good sign. The thing on the top of my multi-tiered layer was the last thing I poured. As you can see, it's still pretty clear, which is awesome, which means that there's no bubbles. So I got them in time. So I'm expecting for the other molds I made to come out good. I am worried that the dice I made are going to look like shit. So this is what lives inside this. And as you can see, I can do 3 different things at once. If this goes well tonight, I'll finish off these molds and I'll show you guys the process for doing that. And then I'll be able to do 3 sets at once, which will really accelerate how fast I can make shit. I started out just making single D20s, and now I'm making like full sets at once, which is super fun to do. And then I started to realize like I get really bored when I can't make dice. So I was like, do I need another pressure pot? I decided to do the multi-tiered insert, and now like as of last night, like this stuff cures in 4 hours, and then dice cure in 24 hours. So I was like, if I had a different pressure pot, I could have been done making these molds already, which would be super nice. Let me figure out how I can get my notifications up on this thing. I think I can do it. Stream Manager app. No, it's not working. It's okay. I'm just gonna look back. Thank you, Enzo Matrix, for subscribing with a tier 1 sub. Alright. The beautiful pressure pot is moving to the floor, and it will remain there until we're just about done. So that thing gets filled with a air compressor, and I have a massive one in my garage, or else I'd have like a desktop one set up right here, but I don't. One of the more complicated things is going to be getting this out. This is a bento box, and I Vaselined the bottom of it and the sides as best as I could. But we'll see how that goes. So that's a success. Let's check out our other molds. And they are not. They might be okay, but as you can see, they're not flat. They have like surface, they have like ridges to them, which means that by the time I got done pouring, they were already starting to set so much that they didn't flatten out as a liquid. And there also are air bubbles in them, which means that even when I'm done doing this entire process, which I still have to do the top part, the cap of this mold, these could be worthless. But it's a lesson that I've learned. So I have a Shiba Inu peeking in to see what's going on, so if she walks into the shot, I'll make sure to give her all the attention. So this one doesn't look as bad, but there are still a lot of bubbles, as you can see. Alright, let's start taking these out. This one, a lot of these bubbles are on the surface, so I'm starting to feel a little bit encouraged. I think it's because at the very end it was so thick I had to scoop it out. Ooh, sorry about that. With these popsicle sticks, which I will use for a bunch of different things. So the D4 looks like it might be okay. These are a set that I had printed for me by someone named the Blue Mimic on Etsy. He makes these really, really nice looking custom dice sets where you can use them as masters and you can reproduce them and you don't get sued or don't have to worry about any of that stuff. This one might be okay also. I think this one had a little bit of a leak to it because it was stuck on the bottom. This is my D6. This one's flat and it just has a few bubbles. So you can see, I think the first one I showed you was the last thing I poured, which is making me feel more encouraged as I go. The D12, same story, pretty flat on the top. It still's got some bubbles. The bottom where the face is, though, looks like it'll be okay. D20, same story. And these fancy looking D4s. He sent that extra. I didn't pay for that. He gave it to me, which was very nice of him. All right. Now let's look at the dice that we tried to make yesterday. I tried to do a combination. I don't have the color. Actually, I do. I tried to do a combination yesterday of these two colors. And I'm trying to do very different colors because they tend to run together and create, you know, just a blob. I've tried to do black and white and waited until they're syrupy, and they always wind up gray. Sometimes they do have some solid color to them. In fact, here's a failure set that I have that I don't know what I'm going to do with yet. But, like, you kind of get some differentiation a little bit. These ones didn't work so well. I didn't mix the mica powder enough, and I wind up having, like, spots in it, but it is what it is. All right, let's look at this D6. D6s are, like, always the prettiest dice. Okay, that is a success. I'm pretty happy with that. All right. The peel is resin off the top of it. Pop this dice out. So there's a few different types of molds. I like to use these cap molds right now. I've used sprue molds in the past, but the divot it creates is a little bit more difficult to clean up than I had preferred. I might make a sprue set just to show you folks what that looks like and then see if I can do better with it. But for the cap molds, because they are just, you know, cap sitting down on top of it with excess resin, you just have to clean up the edges, really. For some of the dice, like D6s, that's really easy to do. For like D10s, for whatever reason, like the bevel it has on the bottom of the D10s are a fucking nightmare. I try to make my molds where I can push them out, so I don't have them being super deep. But damn, man. Those came out nice. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm trying to find which light I can show it under, which will show off how pretty it actually is. Alright, I'm going to pause right there for station identification, and by that I mean I just want to see what you folks are chattering about or if you've asked me any questions. They did ask, why do you need a pressure cooker? Genuinely interested because I also want to make dice. You don't need it. It just really does help get rid of all the bubbles if you let it cure within it. So there are two ways to get rid of bubbles as like a surefire thing. One of them is to do a vacuum chamber, which pulls all the air out. The other one is to do a pressure pot, where it basically compresses the bubbles to the point where they just disappear or are naked to the human eye. So like when I pour resin, there tends to be a lot of bubbles because I mix it pretty aggressively. Here's a good spot where you can see what they look like outside the pressure pot. I don't know if you can see the top of that, but you can see there's some glitter that floated to the top and it's been carried up there by those bubbles. The dice set that I would make out of this, that would not happen because there would be no bubbles to rise to the surface because they'd essentially just be crushed. I love that everyone was like, oh my god, it's so loud. I do have two mixing guns. I just got them. I enjoy actually doing the stirring. It does cause some bubbles. I will say that I got this one for mixing silicone, which is a big one. I almost killed it last night because I mixed so much. It doesn't seem like it goes that fast, but when it's in the resin, it actually does a good job. And I got this small one, excuse me, for silicone. You can use it for resin as well if you're doing a healthy batch. I got this small one too, which is like smaller than a toothbrush. But this thing spins like fucking crazy. They both sound like vibrators, so that's fun. I am probably going to need to change the batteries on these after tonight because I did so much work since I've gotten them. They're getting really exhausted. Let's take the rest of these dice out, and I will shut the fuck up. So I'm going to put them on the tippy top of this, trying to figure out what the best spot is. In fact, we can probably zoom in. Yeah, that's good. While I take these out. I always wind up having a nice little ring that lets you know whether or not your colors work the way you wanted them to. I kind of wanted the purple to be a bit darker, but I'm glad it wasn't actually, because there's still this transparency which lets you see all the streaks in it. It looks good. Alright, we're doing the D4, which is the traditional triangle D4 that we all grew up with and love. It's also the easiest dice to clean up because there's only 3 sharp edges and they are pretty easy to polish. I tossed some clear resin in there too. Like, I left that. I usually just leave them as these like little sculptures for whatever I've left over, or I pour them into a dump mold. But yeah, I was trying to see what it would look like if I mixed some clear in there as well, and I was worried it would dilute it. But up here by the one is where I put the clear, and it really just looks like these two colors are just like stirring into it, like if you're injecting food dye into water, which is awesome. Do not lose my caps and keep track of these since we're going to use these here in a little bit. I also have these registration marks like cut into them, like you can see triangle and like a square. That way, these won't seal any other way. So if you don't put registration marks in, you'll just constantly be like putting it down and lining it up and being like, oh, is that right? And if you put registration marks that are very distinct, there's only one way it can seal. I wish they were bigger. That's the biggest mistake I made. These are my first set that I made of like full dice. And they're good. They're serving my purpose for now. That's why I decided to make new ones out of my new custom made dice, is because I need to do a better job on this second run. So, are you ever tempted to taste? Yeah, every time I mix stuff that looks like, I made a set, I think I have one here, and people were calling them the gusher dice because they just look like gushers, and you kind of want to put them in your mouth. Robin said, put it up to my eyeball. Enzo Matrix says, I'm so grateful for your explanation of the process and why you do what you do. I've learned literally all this stuff off of YouTube. They've made it so easy to just go on there and, you know, watch someone doing it, and everyone's so helpful. And honestly, people are amazing, and they share their knowledge. And there's so many things out there that you can accomplish if you know what you're doing. And I think people used to make a career out of hoarding knowledge, and now people like love to share what they do and like encourage the passion with other people. Snark says, can we get a Scarish logo for a D20? I actually have a 3D printer, and I am set up to make custom dice. I need to get my polishing down once they're printed, but yeah, we can do that. I actually just made a set with a custom font I found that was free use that looks just like, I mean, it's made to mimic, I should say, the font they use for Legend of Zelda. So I'm going to make some that look like that with their lettering. That one's super pretty. Got like this bubbled dome of like purple in it. Ooh, I love that one. I'm gonna zoom in like right up on this shit. The question is it out of focus? And it appears like it might be. There we go. Yeah, I have some stuff to put into my dice, like once I get to that point, and I bought these little like ghosts, because I thought it'd be cool to have like Scarish themed dice. Also, this is like just a wood panel, like a wood round with a dowel on it, but I poured like some of the more durable silicone because when you use these things, resin always pours out of it and it winds up sticking to the wood. So I was like, if I just tape this and pour a thin layer of silicone on it, then I don't have to worry about the resin running over. And which it's just a very common thing when you're using squish molds, that the resin will run over, and I was so tired of trying to scrape it off the wood. So Faye says, this looks so satisfying to do. Taking the dye out is the best. It really is. And honestly, like mixing the colors is super fun too. Sleeping in a Shoe says, can you make cheating dice? No reason I'm asking. Abso-fucking-lutely. Like, I'm like manually putting the fonts onto each face of these like specific geometric shapes. And it's definitely occurred to me I could just make a set that for every one that would be on a dice, you just put another max number. You know, like if you're doing a D6, you have 2 6s instead of a 6 and a 1. I don't know how well they would sell because that's a very niche market of people who like want to fucking cheat, but you know, more power to you. And if they sell well, then hey. This one's like real purple on the bottom, and then like really teal on the top. And it's actually really, really pretty. There's this significant delay between what I can see on my screen and then what's actually happening. But we're going to work with it. We're going to figure this out. Trying to center this for... That's pretty good. All right. Yeah, the thing I like the most about this hobby is like everything has a specific step, and once you've done it a few times, you just kind of get used to it. And so you can. It's not like you're going on cruise control so much as your brain's just occupied to the point where it turns off. You know. And the other thing that I really like about this is that once you're done mixing the resin and you put it in your pressure pot, and you have to wait. You have to wait for shit to cure, whether you're making molds or whether you're making dice. And so it has an end time to it. It's not like when you're reading a book or playing a game where you just get so wrapped up in it that you just like can keep going and going and going. Like if you have shit to do for your day, you won't wind up losing your day to this. This one's another time where the high number wound up getting most of the coloring, but it still worked out well. I'm very happy with how these dice look. It's kind of cool when you start making stuff because the first few you make, you're like, oh, that looks like shit. And then you start making stuff where you're like, I wonder if someone would buy this. And that's a really good feeling. Like, did I just make something I could sell? And I understand why Robin is like so impassioned as an artist and why she's so good at it, because it's kind of an addicting feeling. So I think this is the first dice I made, which was just to see if I can make a dice clear. And it worked. And I've just been hooked since that. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. You don't have to do it the way I do it. You can look up a bunch of different tutorials and find ways other people do that succeed. I have a very complicated technique I'm going to do soon, which is the liquid core dice, where when you roll it, you can see the glitter and the oil or water swirl around. So I have the cores purchased, as you can see from over there. I didn't even know you could see that when I did that. I have the cores purchased, and I'll try and do that on the stream. That way, if I fail, you guys can learn with me. Some of these come off so easy, man. It's so nice. I will say the one thing that was terrible about using those mica flakes, the unicorn dandruff, is sometimes they'd run to the edge. And if they run to the edge and they spill over on the mold, that means you have to like cut it with an X-Acto knife, and then you're going to have to polish the shit out of it. So doing these without that is a relief, actually. Although I really do like how they look. Yeah, a lot of these look like Two-Face dice, which is what I was going for when I was like squirting these things in. I use the... Oh, it's fine. It's just dust. When I'm using the pipettes, I just have them like side by side, and I'm just squeezing them in there, and then some of them like swirl a bit more, and that's when I was like squeezing them like on top of one another. I'm glad the colors did not mix. That is exactly what I was going for. Uno mas. Alright, judging by what you're seeing here, what dice is left? What's the last one I have to do? Faces, how do you paint them after? A very small brush, and you use acrylic paint. I have Citadel paint, which is what people use to paint Warhammer miniatures a lot. And you just paint in the numbers and you wipe off the excess. I feel like the numbers look better if you don't thin out the paint. If you do thin out the paint, they're a lot easier to clean, but cleaning is just as simple as using isopropyl alcohol and shop towel. Not even a shop towel, like just the literal blue fucking paper towels that they sell for like heavy duty stuff. I bought a stock box on Amazon of like 12 rolls for like 20 bucks. So I'll have those until the end of time. Snark says D100, and Snark is correct. It is the D100 that's left. I'll show me painting dice on one of these sessions too, because that is also very relaxing, because it's like you like paint in the side, make sure you like fill the numbers, and then you just take your thumb, like wipe it a bit, wipe it off on your paper towel. There will be excess, and then like after that you just like take your paper towel, put your thumb on it, and then put the isopropyl alcohol on your thumb and just like rub the top like in this very specific way where you're rubbing the surface and you're not digging into the groove, and it just takes all of it off and leaves behind your paint, which is super fun. Shout out to Ghost Dunk for resubscribing for what looks to be the 26th or 28th month. Good lord. 26th month. He said, yo, this rules. Thank you. I was having a little bit of trouble getting the camera to a spot where I felt comfortable. And I don't want my arms to be blocking anything. And it worked. Right, and the D10 looks super pretty too. So those all came out pretty fucking awesome. And that makes me very happy. I don't think I'm going to do anything else with them tonight because you want to polish them and clean up the corners before you paint them. Painting is the last thing you do. And I feel like the polishing is the most mindless and definitely the most boring and the most noisy. And we're not going to do that tonight. What we will do is make another set, and you guys can help me pick the colors. But before we do that, let's look at these molds. Because the next step of these molds is involved and boring. So this is going to get moved. We're going to zoom out so you guys can see everything. You see my hand on the bottom of the screen. That's me adjusting the focus. I think that's good. Yeah, I can see detail on that, so that's good. As for these, I'm going to put them in my fresh out container. Shout out to IKEA, by the way. I got 2 pegboards. I got these things. I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trays and some other accessories. I would say it was probably like 30, 40 bucks. Like the pegboards themselves were the most expensive things. I think they were 12 each. Like a set of 3 of these things was like 6. The trays themselves were like 4, so I'm shocked at how cheap it was to just get this setup going. Snark says, Adam, I have the perfect camera for your painting. That sounds awesome, because I'm definitely going to need a different setup for zooming in super close on that. Face says, can you roll them all at once? The dice goblin in me wants to see the clacky rolls clack. Hell yeah. Clacky rocks clack, excuse me. Very Ribinator. I actually have something I can roll them in. I was considering making a full set mold out of that, but I was like, it's a bit too big. And then I went with the bento box instead. So this will give us that good sound. No, it didn't. It gave us the sound of like screws hitting that. Robin says use a dice box. I do not have a dice box. Some of these came out like super clean on the edges and some of them didn't. Here, I'll do one on the desk. You'll still get the sound, but you won't see them. Ah, yes, that's the stuff. Alright, I'll leave them out. I'll let them breathe. They've been trapped for long enough. Alright, let's do the bento box first. Because it's plastic and I can, flex the sides, which might get some oxygen in there. Because as soon as you start getting some air in the mold, it releases fairly easily. That said, the bottom of these things has a lot more Vaseline than the sides. Sort of digging my finger in there. And you can see I'm getting like some air, some separation. You can hear that wonderful suction sound that everyone loves to hear. Once I can free up every side, I might be able to just pull this thing out. The thing that sucks is that, like, once you've made the bottom part with all the dice in it, you are not done. Like, you are going to have the hardest part come up after that, which is wrapping these things in tape to make yourself a cap. And then covering the top of it with Vaseline to make sure that the silicone doesn't stick to the silicone, but also making sure not to get any Vaseline whatsoever on the die face, because then it won't mold properly. Alright. We don't want to destroy this, 1, because it's Robin's, and 2, because I really like the size of this, and I want to reuse it, because so many things are just too damn big. And you waste so much silicone, and silicone can get expensive. Yeah! I also don't want to demold the dice while I'm doing this, because that would be no bueno. Oh, you can hear that. That macaroni sound that everyone loves. That song's about right. Dice birth. Yeah, dice labor is 100% accurate. Alright. Gonna leverage this with some popsicle sticks. Also, I forgot about this until just this moment. I used some meat thermometers that I picked up recently for dinner tonight, and I totally grabbed one to move something while it was on the grill. And my fucking phone app literally told me, like, the meat thermometer is like 480 degrees right now, and I was just like, yep, I'll just scooch. Oh my god. And I lost half my fingerprint, so this is a little bit more painful than it normally would be. Popsicle stick for the win. Did you hear that? That was the sound we were looking for. There you go. And that was that. Alright. So, this is what the bottom of that looks like. So on the inside of it, silicone is molded to all the other sides. This side was placed on the bottom, and you have like a little bit of glue that you put to make sure shit won't work. Or excuse me, shit won't move. It did work. When you do that, it gives it like a little bit of a lift, so silicone does seep under it. So now what we have to do is take an X-Acto knife and just trace the outline of it, and take the silicone off, make sure to take the glue off, and then what we're going to have to do is take tape, packing tape, scotch tape, shipping packing tape, whatever, and wrap this and make sure it's sealed. I'm going to use hot glue on the bottom of it to make sure it's sealed, and then mix more silicone and pour it in on top to create that top layer. And so in order to get ready to do that, we have a few things we have to do. One is to clean up the faces. Second is to cut registration marks like I was talking about. Third is to wrap it, and then it'll be ready to go. We also have to do that for all 8 of these. I'm probably going to do that off camera because that shit is boring. But we will make dice. I'm going to clean these up right now, though. Thank you all for watching, by the way. It is pretty awesome to actually have people here. I did not expect anyone to be here for this. Sleep in a Shoe said, push! Snark says, I just understood that line of WAP. Oh my god. Face says, this seems like Dice C section, really. Thank you, Robin, for sending 300 bits. She said, yes, I've taken over. Alright. Hope my head doesn't wind up too much in the shot. Okay, good. The camera's in a good spot. I moved the camera because my head was in the way previously. I don't know if you heard the dog bark in the background, but my Shiba Inu sort of always knows when I'm doing something that's needing to be very precise and concentrating very, very carefully. And she barks in that moment because she is an asshole. The other thing that sucks is I don't have very steady hands. And I can kind of focus up a bit and like concentrate in a moment, but it's not going to last very long. That one went pretty well despite the dog barking. So there's just a little bit of excess hanging over the edge that I need to clean up on this one. If you don't clean it up, it's not the end of the world. The cleaner these are now is the less polishing you have to do in the future. And I like cap molds because it's not as hard to polish. And to give you an idea of what a sprue mold looks like, I also made these out of like the toughest fucking silicone I could have bought, so they're very hard to get dice out of. Sprue molds are essentially where you take a dice and you either super glue or drill into the one side of the face, and there'll be a hole on it after that. And you can kind of see this hole. And what you typically use is a toothpick or a pipette, like the tip of a pipette, so something very narrow. And the point of it is that you do a mold that like basically hangs. So you take one of these little cups. I'll just explain this process really fast. You take one of these little cups, and then you take your dice. You drill the toothpick or the pipette. You put some super glue or some hot glue. I prefer super glue because hot glue has a bigger bump that it'll leave, which means you'll have more shit to cut off your dice every time. But essentially you super glue that, and then you super glue the other end to the popsicle stick. And then once you're done, you hang the popsicle stick so this is suspended within the cup, and then you pour your mold around it. When you do that, it comes out looking like this, where you can see the dice kind of is hanging in the center, and then you fill that spot with the sprue hole you made using a toothpick or a pipette. The reason I do not like this is because it's always extra resin. It's not just the dice resin, you have to fill up the pipette as well, which is kind of annoying. The second is to get it out, you have to cut open the side of it. So you have to cut this entire mold and attempt to find the side of one of the edges. So that way you don't have what is essentially spillover, because wherever you cut is going to have all this excess resin that spills out. I like to put my dice mold back into the exact thing I made them in, because it prevents flashing. Anything that spills out on a cut is called flashing, which is helpful, and it does work. It is kind of hard to get them out afterwards because some resin always seeps out and then sticks to the side of the fucking cup. But then when you yank them out, there's a massive sprue that hangs off the top of it. You have to clip the sprue off, and then you have like this ridge or a divot. If you are unlucky enough to get a divot, there's really no fixing it. That dice is fucked. You might be able to mix up some resin that looks identical and fill it, but that's a hard process to get down. If you have a divot, then you have to polish it down, and divots can sometimes tear up your polishing paper. Like, I have Zona paper that I use. You can use sandpaper, whatever the case may be. It kind of sucks. And on top of that, when you fill them, on occasion, like if you're having, you know, two different colors and you're mixing them in at the same time, the face of that dice will start to get resin on it while, you know, it's filling from the bottom because you have a pipette or whatever feeding the resin in there. The last thing that fills on your dice is the spot that you're going to have to sand down, which means that it could be a completely different shade or a completely different color. So you wind up having a spot, even if you've polished them to the point where they look like fucking glass, you can still have a spot there. And it's really ugly. The only thing about sprue molds that I do like is it's only that face. Like for this one, I'm going to have to clean up like the edge of the one here, here, and here, you know? And it's not that much polishing, but for a sprue mold, you only have to clean up the one spot where you put the hole. When you usually pick the fucking one, because no one cares about the one. The one is ugly, it means you fucking rolled like shit, and no one's going to celebrate looking at a one. They're already going to be upset, so fuck it, right? The smart thing to do, which I've realized, if a dice goes to 6, probably not for the D6 specifically, but if there's a 6 and a 9 on a dice, they have a dot in the bottom to tell you which one it is. Pick one of those numbers and just have your sprue hole be the fucking dot, because it's supposed to be there anyway, and everyone's expecting to see it. So I don't know why I talked about that, but you know, if that's helpful for someone, that's awesome. Glitch says, I'm learning so much. Phase says, wow, this is so helpful. Snark says, injection molding, basically. Yes, exactly. Pouring is the way to do it when it comes to these cap molds, which is more fun. You get less bubbles, and it's a little bit dangerous because when you have like a cap on a mold like these ones, you worry that if there is a bubble in there, it's going to get trapped. So that's why you overfill them, and that's why you use a pressure pot, because the pressure pot will crush those bubbles out of there. Because there's a void left by what was taken up by the air before it got crushed down, you need to have that excess resin that's spilling over the sides, because as those air bubbles vanish, it just needs to have a little bit of resin to pull down. And as you can see, these dice did not have problems with bubbles in them. I've actually, knock on wood, I shouldn't fucking say this, but I have not had a problem with bubbles in my cap molds yet, which is one of the most common problems with cap molds. All right, let's get back to cutting these faces. Again, I went too far. I would not be doing any of this without watching Rivenator's videos, so if you go over, I'm actually a patron of his. I don't donate money to a lot of people's patrons, or Patreons, excuse me, but he's helped me so much. He's helped me immensely just by watching it and like realizing, oh, I can do this. And I'm not a very artsy person. I'm not very good. In fact, like in art class growing up, I hated it. Specifically because no matter what I saw in my head, I could never translate that to paper. It always looked terrible. Everything I did, except for a couple of things. So I never really try and do artsy things or crafting or any of that shit. And after I watched his channel, I was like, He has explained this so well, even a fucking dunce like me could do this. The nice thing about cutting a bit too far when you're doing this, like I cut a little bit into my mold right here, is I'm about to pour silicone on top of that, you know? So it's going to fill. So I don't need to worry too much about flashing or anything like that. Snark says, Adam just blew our collective minds. Which is a stupid question, but could you use a rock tumbler to smooth edges? You absolutely can. Again, Ribonator did a video because so many people suggested trying it. You have to use a bunch of different types of materials until you find out what works best. It is very noisy and it does take longer, but if you don't want to just sit over like polishing paper, that'll work. Another thing that I'm probably going to wind up doing is you can pick yourself up a pottery wheel. They're not crazy expensive. They do take up a lot of space, and you know it's just a flat surface that spins. And you can buy yourself like a rectangle or a square of like a pane of glass from Home Depot or any hardware store for very cheap. I think I have a 2x3 foot one, or maybe it's a 4x2 that I'll show you here in a bit. That you know you want a flat surface when you're polishing, so. He just bought himself a pottery wheel, Ribonator did, and then he tapes with the painter's tape his like little square of glass onto the top of it where you would be putting your clay. So it's a flat surface, and then he tapes down his sandpaper using you know, painter's tape again, and then he just presses down on the pedal so it spins. So it's essentially like a sander, and he just goes like this, like, and that's it. You know, he doesn't have to go like this for 25 seconds, then reverse it for 25 seconds, then move on to the next grade of paper. He can just do all of his dice on, you know, one grade, then move on to the next grade of paper, and it's significantly faster. It's a money investment, which, you know, if you're trying to get into this cheap, you can definitely do it. But if you're trying to get into this to try and make like professional looking shit, or to have like high quality equipment, that was one of the things that I saw where I was like, okay, I'm gonna save up some money and get myself a pottery wheel here. The other thing that's nice for me in particular is that Robin is very artsy and craftsy. She's like Martha Stewart, except she's not a felon. And she would probably use the pottery wheel for, like, you know, pottery. Also, shout out to Martha Stewart. Please don't hurt me. Snark says, oh, and now it makes sense as to why you can just cut into molds. You basically repair them again. Exactly. It kind of sucks because the more you use a mold, the more the sides do wear down, and there's not a whole lot of repairing you can do. Can't really see it too well, but you know, just the opening that the face is always going to have when you push that dice out will slowly experience some wear and tear, and because of that, the face that is exposed will start to look worse and worse. I've definitely seen some deterioration in the quality of mine, but nothing too bad, and honestly that's why I used dragon skin silicone for this, is because it's very durable. I used silicone 37 for these ones because it's like hard as a fucking rock, and I'm hoping that it'll make it deteriorate less, but we'll see. That could backfire on me. I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to run out before I'm able to finish these ones. Well, these ones. Which said, would a drill work too? Yeah, if you had like the tops, the bits or whatever. I like to do anything that has like a solid flat surface that, you know, you don't have to worry about like having a very steady hand with. So anything that has like a drill bit where you can have like a flat surface that you can just press up against it. I've watched people that do oversized D20s on Instagram. They're using a very nice resin too, but it's a deep pour resin that's not recommended for things as small as dice, which is why they're doing oversized D20s. But those ones polish up to the point where they just look incredible, and they're super sharp edge too, and they do like these big liquid core dice, and they're not practical. You know, you couldn't roll it on your table without fucking scraping it, and realistically, when you have a liquid core that big, like your dice is just gonna be like, you know, you're not gonna get much roll. But they're gorgeous, and like the fact this person makes them and posts the process on Instagram means even though they're not making practical dice, they're making something that tons of people want to watch them make. So Snark says Larry has so many tools. I'm excited to adapt them. Larry's gonna see you making stuff, and he's gonna think of a different way to do it that's even better, and then you're gonna have to share it with me. Something I've realized slowly by making more and more dice is that the D10s, they have the elongated ones now, but the old school D10s, like these ones, they look like the Assassin's Creed symbol. Because they have like the triangle with like the bevel on the underneath. So clearly the Assassin's Guild is real. And they're trying to tell us something. Also, the 10 is the worst one to polish. Because even if you have sharp edge dice, if you have this specific kind of dice, that spot is always like rounded. Also, round edge dice are a bitch to polish. Any edge that you have on a round edge dice is super hard to polish because it's supposed to be rounded. So if you polish it too much on the flat surfaces, it becomes sharp. And then if you polish it so you're trying to round it, you can't really get that glass finish as fast as you can otherwise. That one came out really well. A few of these still have the glue on them, and we'll pick that off here in a little bit. I'm trying to also not cut into these too much. These are metal dice, which means that these are basically for educational purposes. I'm not sure where I got these, but I definitely bought them. So I'm not going to reproduce them to sell. That's what these are for. These are for making stuff for me and my friends and mixing colors and finding some fun combinations. And then these other ones that I've made of individual dice and shit. Those ones are like if we go to a con and we have some table space and there's some overlap between like whatever we're there for in D&D, I might toss a few of my dice sets out to sell. A lot of the cons we go to are like anime specific, sometimes like comics and anime. But sometimes we go to cons that are like for a bunch of different types of fandoms. I'll walk around and find like anime that I'm into, which you know, for me isn't like extensive as far as lists go. And then if I see like a table that's selling dice, I'm like, I'll take 80, thank you. Like, thank you for being here with D&D stuff because it's such a risk to sell to people that might not be into it. Snark says the D8 is a deathly hollow. It's a good point. The thing that sucks, okay, having a silicone tabletop thing to work on is awesome because like I've cut this thing up before and not damaged the table. Like if you are making silicone molds and your silicone gets on it, it'll separate pretty easily because there's sediment on it sometimes and like resin comes right off of it when you're mixing it. The thing that sucks is it's very difficult to clean. So like I just turn it upside down and I have like a dog hair and an eyelash, which sucks. Alright. Just this one left. And then we can no, just these two left. I forget you have a D10 and a D100. The D12 has the pentagon face, which means they're watching right now. This is just sort of a nice thing for me to do at night. Like, I get relaxed by it. Like, even if I'm fucking stuff up, like, it helps me ignore my anxiety. Like, I've had panic attacks in the past just sitting idle. And this is one of those things where it's like, I'm engaged enough where I'm not thinking about, like, anything that might lead to a panic attack, or if I'm having like, you know, like trouble breathing or my, you know, pulse starts going up, any of the things that might trigger someone into thinking they're dying, basically, I don't really notice it. I was talking to Robin yesterday. It's like when I was younger, man, like any of that shit used to happen, like severe headache, pulse is racing. I'd always be like, oh, that's interesting, and just move on with my day, you know. And nowadays I'm like, you know, 37, so there's so many things that happen where I'm just like, this is it. Like, this is how it fucking ends. The quietest I was for that side, and that was also the worst line I've done yet. It was very zigzagged. I have so much stuff in this office now. Damn it. cut into the mold. Again, it's not a big deal because it'll fill in, but I'm just trying to not have to fix mistakes. Captain Fig says 37 is young. I know. I just actually think about my mortality nowadays because I, plan stuff more. I didn't really think I'd live past 21. I think a lot of people say that when they're young, and it's really their excuse of being like, I'm not planning for anything. But, it was technically true. So I think I'm just going to pick off these little glue dots that I have. Which you can buy, like at any craft store. Just regular glue dots. I find the smallest size that I possibly can, so it takes up the least amount of space on the face. And you don't have to worry about it being on the number either, because it's only on there when this is flush against the bottom of this. So it wasn't going to represent the number anyways. Now we have to take off the glue if it's still on there and clean up the face. For that, I want to use some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip, which I do have. The Q-tips here, I'm not sure where my isopropyl alcohol is. The nice thing, though, is that if I can't find it, I do have a fucking gallon jug of 99% isopropyl alcohol, which is what I use to clean my molds, or the shit that I print on the resin printer. So, let's pick this glue first, and then we'll move on to that step. It's also nice because as you're cutting off the silicone that's kind of spilled over, it's kind of grabbed up the glue and they come off together in most cases. This D12 is a little bit stubborn, but it's cool. The glue dots tend to come off all in one shot, so you're not like leaving behind a ton of residue and then having to pick at it continuously, like if you're trying to pick off a label or something, but they're still difficult. They're not always easy. Which is, I understand, LOL, that feeling when you stand up too fast in your 30s. It's totally true. That's like the thing I was always trying to feel like when I was on roller coasters as a kid, like, give me that head rush. Nowadays, I just bend down, breathe for like 10 seconds, and stand up too fast. Next thing you know, I'm like, I might need to go to the hospital. Alright. Let me find some alcohol to clean this up. I'll show you guys what my BRB screen is, and then I'll just let you stare at the dice. Because I have like all these different things that I set up for the channel. Alright, I'll be right back. thank you for waiting. So, I have what is known as ethyl alcohol. I do not know where it came from. I know that it was delivered to us by Liz, Spooky Sis. She dropped this one off, and another one. I just did the stash super quick, so I'm out of breath. But she dropped this one and another one off, so I'm going to use that. I'm also going to set my phone over here on the charger. I have a charger because I usually have a timer on, and I should still be able to read what you guys are saying, so that's cool. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're just going to pour a little bit out into one of these cups, and then we're going to clean up the faces of the dice, and then we're going to tape this thing up, pour some silicone on it, and after that, resin. So if someone knows the difference between ethyl alcohol and isopropyl alcohol, let me know. I don't think there's anything like super significant. And definitely nothing that would negatively affect what we're using it for, which is just to clean the face of the dice. After I'm done cleaning all the faces, I'm just going to run a little bit of water on them and then dry them off. That way there's no residue of anything that might make the mold not stick properly. Usually for the most part, it works just fine, as long as it's dry. And it definitely leaves it nice and shiny, so it makes me feel like it's serving its purpose of getting the surface clean so that the silicone can bond to it. Word of warning for anyone who's out there making or thinking of making your own 3D printed dice to use in molds. There's this like bizarre chemical reaction that happens for some of the 3D printing resin where you can't use it to make mold because silicone will not bond to it for like 40 days because there's this like very minute chemical reaction that happens to the dice after they cure that has like just a tiny little bit of sulfur vapor on the outside, and that absolutely prevents the silicone from curing. So if you try and make dice molds out of 3D printed resin dice, a lot of times the silicone won't set. And you can leave it for like days and it still comes out goopy. So, just something to think about. There's a Ribinator video for that too, of course, because the guy is awesome. There's a product you can buy called Inhibit X, where if you dip your dice into it and let them sit for like 5 minutes, it stops whatever that is, so you don't have to wait like 40 days or whatever. The Robin Grace says Liz brought them for some reason. I think it has something to do with painting or some crafts we were doing at the time. Glitch says isopropyl alcohol is pure alcohol and is a colorless liquid with a musty, sharp odor. There are no other ingredients in a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. By contrast, rubbing alcohol contains isopropyl alcohol among other ingredients, such as water. Most rubbing alcohol brands contain 70% isopropyl alcohol. Right on. This ethyl alcohol says 95% denatured lab grade. So, I don't know what that means, but I imagine it means that it's 95% isopropyl alcohol with some other stuff, and they took the nature out of it because nature bad, and that you can use it in labs because labs are important. At this point, like, both sides of my Q-tip are super wet. I think I'm going to clean up this D20's one just the tiniest bit. Just the tiniest bit. You might not need it though. I know this shit seems monotonous and boring, but it's really fun. Like, there's a reason why dice makers exist on YouTube and edited videos. And it's because like the stuff like this is definitely not something that's like sexy or you expect to get a bunch of people watching you while you stream, but I don't know, it's fun. I enjoy it. Also, another tip, if you ever do molds with like these small little shot glass size hefty cups, save the tips. I always throw them away and I always regret it because like in this moment I'm gonna have to use Vaseline to put all over the surface. You can also use baby powder apparently. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I'm gonna try that next time. But that said, you have to put Vaseline all over this, which means I need something to put my Vaseline onto so I can dip my shit and then rub it all over there. And those would have been perfect, but they're buried in the trash underneath a bunch of nasty ass resin, and I don't want to dig through that. So I will just use a measuring cup. No big deal. NBD. Robin said, all the knowledge nuggets. Glitch says, we are Adam's Google. Thank you. And the Matrix says, whoa there, science brain. JK. Faye says, now I want chicken nuggets. Oh, God. Don't we all? So good. There's still some Vaseline on this, too, which is going to make this way easier. But let's get to it here. What I hate about Vaseline or petroleum jelly, whatever, is that like sometimes when you open it, it's like opening up a ketchup bottle where there's a bunch of water that just wants to fall out of it. I think this isn't going to do that to me today. It definitely did it to me yesterday. All right. We're also not going to use too much of this because when it comes to Vaseline on these things, a little bit goes a long way. So like maybe a nickel size worth, not even that. All right. Goes back up there. Get a couple Q-tips. And all we're doing now is just trying to cover this entire surface except for the dice faces. So if you do get it on the dice faces, we just bust out the isopropyl alcohol again. And it is a little bit difficult to make sure you don't touch the dice face, but get as close as you possibly can. Because a Q-tip is not exactly like a sharp-edged instrument. But, you do your best. The more you do it, the better you get. It's like anything else. It's kind of fun though. Like whenever you start a new project or a new hobby, you just have to remind yourself like this is the worst I'll ever be. And if you still have fun doing it and things actually don't turn out too bad, very quickly a hobby turns into a passion. So like that's how it was for us with podcasting. Like I had never really edited audio aside from editing some videos and shit in like high school for announcements. And I didn't really even know what I wanted to talk about. I just knew I wanted to talk about video games. So the first podcast we did was fun. We had fun doing it, and we didn't have a big audience, but people still listened. People we didn't know, which was shocking. And then slowly but surely you start to think, like, how can I make this better? How can I be better? And we did that for a little while. And then I started thinking about, like, the podcasts that I wanted to listen to or the content that I wanted to hear. And when I couldn't find it, I was just like, fuck it, like let's just make another podcast. So that's how Scary-ish came about. I had some friends who were talking about doing a paranormal podcast where they just got drunk and told ghost stories. And so I offered to help them in a bunch of different ways, and they just never got going on it. And after waiting for months, I was like, hey, I'm going to move forward with my idea. I just want you to know, like, I don't want you to be upset about that. And one of them was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, they told me, like, the other person was never serious about it anyways. They just wanted to pretend like they were. And I was like, right on. And then I asked the other person, like, or I didn't ask. I was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I just want to let you know. And they were like, what about my idea? And I was like, you've had, like, 8 months to do your idea. Like, in the meantime, like, other people have started the exact same show. Like, where they get drunk and cover paranormal topics. I forget what the name of it is, but those people are all also very charismatic. And I was like, I don't want to do a show that has alcohol involved. I just want to do a paranormal/true crime show. Well, I want to do paranormal. Robin was really about true crime, and we realized like it'd be really fun to just do both. And then Spotify was like, we're going to help you guys out with the algorithm. So if people search scary, you're the first thing they see. Shout out to Spotify. They've been very good to us. I don't think they even know it. I'm like halfway done. I'm halfway there. You have something that's like perfectly symmetrical. You could technically, do it the first way where you have the face down, then flip it upside down, clean it off, and then pour the stuff in over it. I don't think that's the case with this, and there's definitely not enough height on it, but I do wonder. Yeah, it's just because it's beveled like all things are, slightly more beveled at the top. It just won't work. But if you have something like that, it'll probably save you the extra step of the tape that we're about to do. If you like working with tape, then you definitely don't want to skip that step. If you're like me, where tape is a fucking nightmare because it tries to stick to everything while you're working with it, then you're just always looking for any way to not fucking use it. Sorry that this is boring, y'all. I'll read your guys' talk. Lister says, that's why you buy it in the tub. Vaseline, not ketchup. Good point. I didn't have any of the stuff in the tub. I just had that, like, Walgreens small, like, squeeze bottle. Enzo says, oh, hey, Elizabeth Tree, we have that bottle in the fridge. Coach said, y'all have Vaseline in the fridge? Oh, that's funny. I put my aloe in the fridge because when you get a sunburn, you have to use that stuff on your body. Like, it feels so good putting cold aloe on you. Enzo Matrix says, nobody likes cold Vaseline. Faye says, I mean, maybe for chapped lips. Yeah, maybe. I think, Faye, you're the one that taught me the phrase, you don't want to yuck someone's yum. Which is very true, although there are certain things that are someone's yum where I'm just like, fucking yuck. But I try and be nice about it now. I'm realizing these molds have just like the slightest amount of deformation, not on the dice, but around the edges. It's not going to affect it, but it just means there are some imperfections inside here. Like anything that's like a scrape or a bump or anything like that would show up on this as like either a ridge or a divot. It's nothing bad, but you definitely always want to evaluate what you're going to use as a mold. And I missed that. Got a hair on this thing, so I'm just gonna get it out of here. One of the first sets I made had like this tiny black fleck fall into the resin while I was mixing it, and I was like, God damn it. I tried to get it out, and I tried to get it out, and then I eventually just couldn't find it anymore. And then when I finished doing my dice, I grabbed my like D6, I was like, son of a bitch. It was like right on the face. It was so annoying. My friend Ralph, who also goes by Beast Nerd on Twitch and all the other things too, and makes props for cosplay over at Beast Nerd Props on Instagram. He has a friend who does a bunch of different types of art stuff who said that they would buy my fuck-ups of my dice at like a really reasonable rate, and I was just like, cool, like I wasn't planning on using them. I will say this is the moment where I tell you guys that I fucked up here. Because I should have cut my registration marks before I did this, because you have to put Vaseline in your registration marks. That said, it's not going to hurt it to just do it now. But I'm going to cut a pretty big triangle and a pretty big square. That way, if I try and line them up in the opposite sides, they will not go in. And then I won't have to worry about it being difficult to seal. When you cut your registration marks, make your shapes distinct. And cut your lines at an angle so you don't have to try and rip it out. Also try and stay as far away from as many of the dice as possible. Sometimes that's just not possible because you just don't have that much real estate. But cut deep too. I was really afraid to cut deep for my first ones, and I realized really quickly like what a fucking mistake that was. Alright. And don't worry if it's like janky or jagged, because you're just about to pour more silicone into this shit anyway, so. Alright, so we cut out a little pyramid there. And that will be on the bottom of the lid, like how this one has a bunch of different ridges to it, except it'll be more accentuated because it is a bigger mold. That goes in the trash. I'm only going to do, I think, like 3 or 4. You can do as many as you want. I don't want to be too excessive on it, because then it is hard to line up even if you have a bunch of unique shapes. Just because you went balls to the wall. You have to make sure like everything lines up perfectly. This one's going to be my square. I have lots of real estate on this side to make it nice and big. And I'll cut some divots in the edges as well. Man, that one almost came right out. That would have been fucking epic. Boom! Look at that one. Just a square. Inside, though, it's going to be this little 4-sided pyramid shape of a registration mark. It is kind of close to my dice, but in the long run, it's more than far enough away. It'll not have to worry about too much. It'll get resin in it, but it still just comes right out. So I'm going to cut some registration divots on the side as well. Those kind of help it lock in place. It's so slippery because I did the Vaseline first like a dum-dum. Yeah, I'm only going to do this one. I'm not going to do one on the other side. Because it also helps knowing which side is like top versus bottom. It doesn't really matter which one you think it is, but when you're trying to like put the cap back on, sometimes I'm always just like, alright, fuck, like I gotta find one that has, 2 registration marks between 2 caps. When you're doing that, when there's resin dripping off of it, it's a bit too much. So when I seal this from now on, I'll just know like, alright, which side has the side latch? Boom, I'm good. Alright, so that's done. Put more Vaseline into these new holes I've created. And tape, and then silicone. Now I said a little bit of Vaseline goes a long way, but you definitely want to make sure that anything that's a divot like this, your registration marks, has a bunch in there. Because it will fill with silicone even with that stuff in there, but if it latches on and does not want to release, it'll rip your mold up pretty fucking good. And that's a nightmare. You also don't want to cut too far down on the sides because we're about to tape this thing up with tape. And you don't want to give it an avenue to leak. Like, cutting into the side definitely does exactly that, which is why we're going to seal it with hot glue. Alright. Snark says, that much real estate in this economy? Man, if I had real estate in this economy, I would be fucking thrilled. Glitch says, I would like some candy corn color dice. Is that possible? 3 colors. I think I've seen some before. 3 colors is absolutely possible, but candy corn is one of the most vile things created by humankind, so I'm not sure if I can do that. Also because this shape is kind of beveled inwards, when I put the tape on, it's all going to lean in, which is going to make my cap look odd and like misshapen. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely going to make it more difficult to wrap it. But let's see what happens. Mistakes are always fun to watch, right? I should plug in my hot glue gun. I'm also using Robin's hot glue gun. I feel bad because I bought like a bag of hot glue sticks thinking I would be replenishing it. And I bought the wrong size because I bought Gorilla Glue because I wanted like really tough hot glue. And sure enough, they're too thick for Robin's glue gun. I might have to just buy another glue gun that can handle the big things. Alright. Snark says, yo, bring it full circle, elote dice. Faye says, I vote glittery. No matter what I do, I'm going to put some liquid glitter into it so that it sparkles. Lizard says, candy corn is a gift from gods themselves. Enzo Matrix says, ooh, fighting words there, Malum. Glitch says, LOL, I don't like the candy. I like the colors. It's Halloweeny. Captain Fake Guy says, a vengeful god, maybe? Snark says it's the texture for me, it's just gross. It's always tasted like wax to me. Alright, you can just like wrap it and like keep unfurling the tape, which is probably the better method to do. I'm going to do about half of it and then just rotate it. And I'm going to do it almost all the way to the bottom. I do have to put hot glue on this, so I can't go all the way to the bottom. But I also need to keep in mind that this registration mark that I cut over here is deep as fuck. You want to try and keep it as even as possible, because if you don't have it lined up well, your like rim here starts to like lean and bevel, and it gives you a bunch of fucking problems. Alright. I'm gonna go around it twice. I should probably move that isopropyl alcohol before I spill it everywhere. The second go around, I try and go just a little bit higher. Not for the height on the mold necessarily, but so that I can seal this in a higher spot where this tape is connecting to itself versus where the tape connects to the silicone. I did not line that up well. And now I'm fucking this all up by pulling it back. We are going to have a misshapen mold, but hey, just adds character, right? Scissors. Alright, it's not as misshapen as I thought it would be, which is nice. And the tape is sealing pretty well against it, despite the fact that it is that bevel shape. There is a couple of spots, like, you can see that it's like really flush right here. Like, it looks really solid, but there's a couple of spots if you like twist it where you can see like it's beveling a bit right there. It's definitely got a bubble right here. This is the stuff that the silicone's going to seep down into and try and spill everywhere, which is why we're going to go around it with hot glue and just seal it on the line, which doesn't really take that much hot glue. This is definitely going to be a weird shape, though. I'm actually kind of worried because I didn't put a lot of Vaseline around like the lip where it's rolling down. And silicone is 100% going to fill in on that. So I think I'm going to try and add some Vaseline into it last second here. I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world if that happens. I'll just have to take the X-Acto knife and find the line tomorrow. But it's not exactly what you want to have happen, you know? I'm also almost out of Vaseline. Oh, never mind. I forgot why this is a nightmare. Putting Vaseline in the mold while you already have the tape means the cotton tip is going to get ripped to shreds because it's going to touch the tape. So fuck it. We'll just fix it with the X-Acto knife tomorrow. And for tonight, we're just going to seal this shit and pray for the best. So I'm also going to tilt this at weird angles so that I can see where the actual tape begins. Where the resin is. Using where the silicone is. Did I mention that the dog always barks when I'm doing something that's like careful and critical? Because she just barked again. You lose the line of where your tape meets your silicone. Just like, one, do your best, but a little bit of excess isn't going to kill anything. If you put too big of a glob on, it may melt a little bit of a divot into your silicone, but nothing too substantial. Alright. I'm going to stand this up. Hope it doesn't drip. It should be good. When we're all said and done, what we're going to do is put an excessive amount near where I cut that registration mark. That way when it does fill up with silicone, it does not... Oh no, I've touched it. It does not pour past it. It doesn't even have the chance to. All right. Now that we have two sides done, it's going to be really hard to set this thing down, so I'm just going to hold it. Try and hold it straight while I do this. I definitely just got a strand on the bottom of this, but no big deal. It's all going to be peeled off and picked off when this is done anyway, so it's not the end of the world. Alright, I'm going to give it a sec now because I 100% do need to stop and wait until I can put my fingers on this side so I can hold it while I do the other side. I go lefty with the glue gun. Wish me luck. I am not good at literally anything with my left hand. Some things I'm okay at, but I'm just better with my right. Because I'm a righty. I am definitely going to get hot glue on my thumb here. We're just going to keep going. My thumb is going to become one with the mold. And it's cool. The parts where it is beveled, I'm putting a bit more of the globs on there. Hardware looking good, I'm just kind of leaving a line, so. We're approaching the part where I have to figure out how much silicone to mix up to put in this thing. We don't need the lid to be all that deep, to be honest, because I'm not going to put a sprue hole or anything like that in there. And even then, it definitely doesn't even need to be that big. But I don't want to have to mix extra, because that is a pain in the ass. And I had to do that twice yesterday. So if you're wondering what the difference is between this thing and these, it's essentially the same process, except the way I've made these ones is I took just this tape, cut off a basic square, stuck the dice with the one side face down on the bottom of it. Didn't have to use a glue dot, which is nice. And then just filled it with silicone around it so that it was covering the top of it, not all the way. Like, I shouldn't say not all the way, like not super high, but enough where, you know, it's going to cover it. And then I have to peel off the bottom part now, cut off the hefty cup, surround it with tape just like this, Vaseline it just like this, cut registration marks just like this, and then fill it with silicone just like this. But I'm going to have to do this 8 separate times. So that's why I'm going to do that off camera, which will probably be something I do tomorrow. That said, this looks like the hot glue is all dry. As soon as I say that. It's dry enough to set down for sure. So, let's guesstimate how much fucking silicone we're going to need for this. And which kind we're going to use. I'm pretty sure that's dragon skin, so I want to make sure that I use the same stuff that I used. I don't know if I'm going to have enough, though. It feels like I will, because it's 2 parts equal in volume. You should mix it for 3 to 5 minutes. It has... It does have that pot life of 25 minutes. I keep forgetting about that. So actually, the next step of what we're going to do is we're going to make dice. We're just going to go make the dice because that pot life is 45 minutes. So we're going to use the dragon skin as the last thing we do, because once we mix it and we pour it, it has to go in the pot. So... All right. Sleep in a Shoe suggested solo cup covers. It could be cool to make just like a solid red dice. I haven't really considered doing that quite yet. Or just red with like some white outline, or red with white lettering could be fun. Lizdry says, I love how it's chewy but also turns to dust at the same time. I know we're still talking about, or you guys were talking about candy corn. Snark says, not misshaped, custom. Tide Pod colors is cool. That's kind of what these ones are, a little bit. I actually really, really like how these turned out. I got to take some pictures. I actually have to start an Instagram for all this shit that I've been doing too. Glitch says the forbidden dice. Faye says, ooh, what about Halloween colors? Silver, black, and orange. Glitch said yes. Purple, black, and orange. I have not done orange before, but I do have this Tangerine Dream pigment that I'd be more than willing to use. It looks like that. I don't want to open it, and I will have to turn off my fan before I do so. So let's say that's definitely going to be in there. We're definitely going to be using orange for this. If we wanted to do black, black does have a tendency to take over a dice, but I do have Black Oyster. And as you can see, it is very, very black. We can do the pigment route, which would make them opaque. We can also go with the alcohol route, which does make it a little bit more dangerous. If you use too much alcohol, it might not cure properly. But if you do it in decent amounts, you should be okay. I do have black in here somewhere. I was using it yesterday. In fact, it might still be out because of that. Because I'm dumb. I sat in gum. Whatever. I have black in here somewhere. We could use that. That's brown. I don't have orange, though. I don't have orange ink. We would have to use this for the orange for sure. Vote not solid color dice. Enzo says, hey, Malum, even if you do that off camera, maybe still record it and down the road edit and make TikToks of your process. People love the learning curve. This is true. This is just so time intensive. And it's like one of those things that I'm definitely going to be like bored doing myself. The only thing that's really nice about doing individual dice as opposed to doing these like full sets is that you don't have to clean up the silicone off the number because you use the tape. When you use the tape, it prevents the surface from getting any sort of color on it whatsoever. Where did my black ink go? It ran away from me. I'm very sad. What I would suggest doing here is using black ink on the black and then using orange mica powder on the orange so that there's a nice swirl to it and both colors stay distinct and different. And then we can ink them silver. And I think that it would look really pretty if we inked them silver. So let's set on a quest to find my fucking black ink. Red. Sear-let. I don't know what the fuck that means. Orange red. Which is close to orange that I probably have. Fuchsia. This looks like blood. Let's take that out. We'll take a look and see what it looks like when I open it. Lemon yellow, which sounds like limoncello. Damn, man. Like, where did it run off to? I must have left it out when I was using it, because I'm trying to work on this technique where you can do, like, Petri dish dice. I don't know how well you can see this, because it is very far away. But you can see the very top there, you have, like, the white ink that you place on top of a different pigment color. It just starts dragging that ink down. It's called sinker. And I have the white that's like sinker ink. It's not something I'm ready to start making dice out of yet because you have to use a very minimal amount of ink. And to prevent it from running, you do that to prevent it from running to the sides of your mold, because if your ink touches the sides where it's like ink and not resin, because you don't mix it, you let it sink itself, your dice will be tacky and soft. Like, I could just literally dig my fingernail into this and just put a massive divot into it, and you definitely don't want that on your dice. So I'm still tinkering around with what to do there. Where the F did my black go? This is so annoying. I have everything so perfectly laid out, except my black ink is missing because I was playing around with it. Let me get my gloves ready too. I was using like the regular blue gloves. I ordered them online, and then it turns out that my hands are a bit too big for them. So I just got these in today. These large nitrile gloves. And they fit like a glove. It's so wonderful. I wonder if I knocked it down, or if I put it into one of these drawers, or did something else stupid with it. Maybe it's hiding in my other one. Nope. Interesting. I'm also thinking about getting a webcam set up where, like, we have the overhead cam, and then maybe in the corner you guys can see, like, my face as I do this, so you can see how concentrated and stupid I look. I think that would be fun. Probably just pushed it off to the side and it's hiding behind something. Retracing the steps in my brain right now. I don't remember storing it somewhere though. It's so weird. Interesting. Face says, yes, glittery. These are going to look super pretty. Antimatrix says, my quest is for you to be confident enough in this to sell your dice because I want some reboot dice. I will fucking make you reboot dice. They might not be good, but I will work my ass off until I can make them good, and then I'm going to give them to you and sell them to other people. Where the fuck is my black? I'm so annoyed right now. I have so many. And it's probably going to wind up being back in that thing. And I'm going to be super annoyed with myself. Alright, I'm going to leave the camera on, but I'm going to look around here just to see if I might have placed it somewhere else. Alright. Oh, fuck me. Gonna unplug this glue gun. I don't want it to be dripping while I'm doing this. So yeah, anytime you work with resin, wear gloves. Like, you know, people say like, oh, I recommend you do this. I'm not recommending it. I'm telling you, wear gloves. It is sticky. It is a pain in the ass to get off your hands. So the one thing that I think a lot of folks don't do is wear a mask. It does state on the warning label that you absolutely should wear a mask anytime you're using it. For your information, UV resin, which cures with a UV light or being left in the sun for like 2 to 5 days or whatever, that shit stinks worse than anything. It smells so bad. The other resin that just cures over time, like Art and Glow or Envirotex, it also does not smell pleasant, but is not nearly as bad. I do have a mask that I wear when I'm doing UV resin, if I'm not in a very well ventilated area or whatever. But you know, it's totally up to you. Base it off of how much you feel like you're at risk of inhaling the fumes. I usually sit back while I'm mixing stuff, and now that I have the sticks, I can just like, so I'm pretty good to go. I can't believe I can't find the black ink. That is so disappointing, because as you can see from that one that I had over there, I clearly have it. So I picked this up, I shook it, and look what fell out. The black. Hell to the yeah. Alright. We're going to use a healthy dose of black ink in this, and then we're going to use a healthy dose of Tangerine Dream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix them in this. I'm going to pour it out while it's still clear, and then I'm going to mix in the pigments so that we have black and orange completely separate. And then we're going to pour them in together. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to scooch these out of the way. I'm going to get these set up in front of me, and then we're going to be ready to basically go as soon as we get to it. Kind Vegas says the black gloves do look like they could be used for other activities. I hope you mean murder. Robin said those black gloves are so schmexy. They're definitely schmexier than the blue ones, and they fit so well. Like they might be like the tiniest bit too small, but just compared to the other ones where it was like the webbing on the fingers was here, and I'm just like struggling to just bend my fingers. It was such a pain in the ass. And the Matrix says, wait, what? Really? I'm in love. No, dead serious. Faye says, wait, I missed it. What happened? I'm going to make him some reboot dice themed after Enzo or Megabyte or Hexadecimal or Bob, whoever, or just the reboot logo. All right. They do fit like a glove. Let me plan this out in my brain a little bit. So, gonna mix the resin, mix the colors, pour it. As soon as we have those all done, we're immediately going to shift into mixing silicone. So, I will have the extra cup ready and waiting for that. Because as soon as we're done mixing it, we're gonna pour it, get everything on the insert, drop it in the pressure pot, and that will be the end of the stream. Because after that, I just got to go pressurize the thing and wait, and that's it. And again, it would be nice to have a second pressure pot because I will be up at midnight or 1, which is when this thing would be done curing, and I could just cut it out and make another set in my second pressure pot. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to invest in. I'm going to get my sprue mold out of the way. I was just using that for educational purposes. All right. So because this is a silicone mat, I used to put a paper towel down, and I don't do that anymore. I'll put a paper towel down over here to rest all my tools on because it's close to the edge of the mat. But as far as this tabletop goes, it is literally bought specifically so that if I do squish molds like I'm about to do, and there's runoff, it can just sit there. And when it sits there, it will cure. And once it's cured, I can just peel it off. Or I can just wipe it up with a paper towel, which I do often. So trying to reduce how many paper towels I use. I also try and arrange these so that I can see like 2 registration marks on the top, 2 registration marks on the top, so I know that I just pick it up, flip it over, and it lays down. Because it is a pain in the ass, man. Like when you are trying to figure out exactly how to line these fucking things up. That's why I wanted to have like big and not many for that particular mold. See, this D20 is getting a little bit worse for the wear because you can see like kind of where there's a bevel to it. So I'm hoping that these ones work out because I definitely need a new set. Alright, 2 on top, 2 on top. Let me get my shears out of the way. I don't think I will need them. Fingers crossed. Alright. 2 on top, 2 on top. This is my favorite one, the D4, because it has such a fat fucking registration mark. There's no way it'll seal otherwise. I was smart when I did that one. Alright, this can move. Glitch said, I am too excited for this. This is the absolute best part of doing all this, is like seeing the colors. It is just so much fun to mix this shit and see it like come out. And alright, before we get doing that, here is the secret that Rabinator teaches everyone. It's called iridescent glitter. It is just basically, if you take clear resin and you drop it in there, it'll still be perfectly clear, but it will sparkle. So we're definitely going to put that in when the resin is still clear. Do we want to put anything else in? I have what is called foil paper, and I have a bunch of different colors, but I have gold, which I've used excessively because it looks so good in just about everything. I could put gold flake in the black resin, but it might be overdoing it. I also have purple, pink, silver, blue, light purple, light green, red, and then like a brown. We're doing 2 separate colors with glitter in it already, so it might be a bit too much. Also with the orange, since it's going to be relatively opaque, we wouldn't be able to see any of the paper shit that I would put in there, so we can avoid that. I'm also going to leave the black pigment out, because if we can't get it looking like solid black enough with this, we don't want to put too much alcohol ink in it because it won't cure properly. So if we mix in some pigment, but just a tiny little bit after putting in ink, if we want to get like it a little bit darker where it has like a translucency to it, where you can still see it, but it's not like perfectly see-through, then we can use that if need be. And then I'll keep this just out so we can just take a look at it really fast. And then Tangerine Dream, though, is going to be heavily fucking featured, which I am excited about. All right, so first things first. How do we want to do this? What we're going to do is just 2 of the larger mixing cups. We're going to mix all the resin in one of them to start. Then I'm going to pour half of it into the other one, mix up the colors, and then we're going to put pipettes in them, let it absorb up, and then we're just going to do what I did for the other ones. All right, what do you folks have to say? Glitch says, ooh, purple in the black. Right on. I haven't used purple yet. The black is the one that we want to put something into as well, because it will be the one that it'll show up in, because the black is going to be transparent or translucent. Well, the orange one might be vaguely opaque. You always want to have one that's like slightly translucent. I feel like you don't have to, and they could still look cool. They'll look like they're swirling together, but like with these ones, you can just see more of like the purple, which was the one I put more pigment into, because you can see slightly through the teal, you know? And I think that actually makes it look better. I do have dice that I've done where they look opaque. So this shit crumbles super easily. It's like the most delicate paper you could ever imagine. I'm going to take the rubber band off, but I'm not going to take that out until we're ready to use it, because it's going to get everywhere. Stay. Don't even look at me. Vaseline cup. It's nice to have a trash next to you too, because, you know, I don't want to leave my fucking cups out here and then wind up forgetting what is in what. Like, I could have thought the isopropyl alcohol was a shot of water, and I could be dead right now. So, alright, cool. We're going to use Art and Glow. We're going to stir with Big Daddy here. Let's hope he has enough juice. If not, I'll do it by hand, or I'll use this thing. A lot of people rated this thing like it was fucking garbage on Amazon. It's like $6. And the reason they rated it so low is because it puts bubbles in the resin. It 100% does, because it spins so fast. But guess what? I have a pressure pot, so I don't give a fuck if it puts bubbles in there, because the pressure pot crushes them. It crushes them down, like the world crushed my soul a long time ago. So, Snark says, I can't wait to make healing potions. Yeah, I've been thinking about buying like little bottles and putting like red resin in there so it looks like it's a healing potion, and then putting red dice into it after the fact, so you can just shake it and then like see what your healing was. But that's another thing that Ribinator does too. I basically just do everything Ribinator does and then try and do other stuff as well. But yeah, that'll be super fun. So I think I'm gonna do. I don't want to do too little, but I definitely don't want to have a ton left over. 60 is probably the best to do, but I'm gonna try and mix. There's no 35 on this, so I'm gonna try and mix 60, and we'll have 30 on one, 30 on the other. That might be a little bit too skimpy for doing 7 full dice. Let's do 80. Let's do 40 and 40. We'll have a little bit extra. If you wind up with pucks like this of your excess, like, yeah, that sucks. But also, you can pour them into a dump mold, and then you can test on your dump mold to see like which colors are going to look best on your dice. Because like, I have one here where like I did bone, I did bronze, I did gold, I did blue, I did black, because I was like, what looks best on this dice? And shockingly enough, gold was the right one. So I think that's what we're going to do, so we can have enough extra for another one. And you know what? We won't use the squish mold dump. We'll use the sprue mold, so the next time I stream, I can show you guys why I hate these. So, alright, cool. Let's do it. When you pour, it's totally up to you, your preferred method of pouring. I like to face the measurement I'm trying to take away from me. Otherwise, like, I have trouble reading it, and I put my hand behind it sometimes if, like, there's not good lighting. Luckily, right now, things are kind of perfect, so I'm going to pour this. This is the actual resin, the hardeners, and the other one, it's a 1-to-1 mixture. So we're doing 40 of this, 40 of that, and then we're going to stir for 5 minutes. Since we're going to stir it so much after the fact, I'm actually going to stir it for 4 and then mix in the liquid glitter. Also, I like to have my phone out when I do this stuff anyways, because I use my phone's timer to know how long I've been stirring stuff for. That is like spot on for 40. We're going to let it drip one more time if it wants to. No, you're good? Okay. So 40 resin, 40 hardener. The more precise you get your ratio, the better your dice will harden. It's not shocking. If you fuck up your ratio, you're like 40 and 30, your dice are going to be tacky, or your dice are going to be like brittle. There's no telling what, you know, will fuck up because you poured in too much hardener or too much resin. It says mix for 3 to 5 minutes. I try and mix for at least 5. It's also this weird thing where the hardener tries to stick to the side of the fucking cup. I probably should have turned off my fan for this, but it was hot as balls in this office, and I have 3 fucking lights burning on me right now. Alright, we are at 80. That's good. Alright, So, I have my stopwatch up so I can overlap it with this. I'm going to move it right there, start it. You don't have to like always hit start, just remember when you start to stir. So this might be noisy. If it is, I will mute the mic. So just let me know in the chat if this is too noisy. But here we go, starting now. You can see how streaky it is as the two of them are mixing together. Hopefully my hand's not completely blocking the shot. I think it is. When those streaks are gone, then it's basically mixed, but I try and go for a little bit longer. Also, I try and keep like the entire paddle submerged, and I find you get less bubbles in it that way. Wonder if I can zoom in on the fly. Oh god. I'm fucking everything up. I'm looking at this thing like it's a monitor. It's totally not. Pause. Yeah. There we go. Now it's worth watching. Alright, we only lost about 10 seconds, so at 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I'm going to reverse the way this is going, so it will be sure to mix. We're not getting a lot of bubbles in this at all. This is the Istoyo hand mixer. It's specifically for silicone and resin. It's not like it's for food or anything. So if you want to check this out on Amazon, I really like it. A lot of people complain about these things and say they put too many bubbles in their resin, but fucking popsicle sticks, resin stir sticks, that shit all puts air into your resin, like every bit of it. No matter what you do, you're always going to just like fold bubbles into it, unfortunately. So these things are very helpful, and they definitely save your forearms quite a bit. I don't mind doing resin with my like just hands with brute strength. But man, silicone, especially Sorta-Clear 37, like, it's hard to mix. Sorta-Clear 37 is like the thickest shit ever. Alright. We have reversed. We're going to go 4 minutes and 30 seconds, then we're going to drop in some liquid glitter to make them shiny per phase demands. Snark said magnet mixers. I've looked at them. I don't know how practical they would be with resin and silicone specifically. There's stuff that I've seen that it's basically mixing something that's not as viscous as this. So I'm not sure how well they would work. They're also way more expensive. They're not super expensive, but like, I think this thing was like 14 bucks, and the other mixer was like 7. I also could have used the other mixer, but this one fits in this cup, and I don't really see much of a reason to use the smaller one rather than the bigger one. This thing will come out with a bunch of resin dripping off of it. So I'm actually going to pull it out at 410 and let it spin to sort of like spin off that extra resin. With centrifugal force, which is I think how you say that word. Alright, I'm going to grab a paper towel over here so I can set this down on my mat without worrying about leaving a giant sticky spot on it. Like I said, this shit all hardens and would peel off the mat, but over the next 8 hours or so, it will still be a fucking mess if I touch it, which is why I'm wearing gloves. And Let's scooch that out of the fucking way for a second. It's just easier to not make a mess this way. So, there's that. I'm only putting this down for a second because we're about to put in that liquid glitter. It all sinks to the bottom, but you just shake it up. Yes, that puts air in it. Who gives a shit? Now we're going to do, let's say 9 drops. Let's say 8 drops. 1 for each 10 milliliters we mixed. It's kind of cool if you just let it sit for a sec because you can see them start to sink. That's 8. But you just want to mix it up and get it nice and shiny. Nice and sparkly. I'm going to mix this for another 50 seconds. So start at 5 minutes and 40 seconds on my timer. We're going to get this to 6:30. It will be incorporated and sparkly. It does have this like certain opaqueness to it as you're mixing it, but as it like mixes a bit more and a bit more, the opaqueness starts to go away. It starts to get clear again, but you can see that it's really just turning to sparkles because it's just those clumps of glitter that are in it waiting to disperse. Like, for me, it just looks so pretty right now. Alright, we are ready to split this up and add in our pigment and our alcoholing. Just spin off that excess yet again. It's still showing like right at 80, so we really did not lose a lot of resin by getting it to stick to this thing. It does a really good job of being a non-stick coating. Even if you have resin dry on this, it peels right off. Silicone peels right off of it as well, so this thing works super well. It takes 4 fucking AAAs though. That is what holds this thing back from being awesome. If it was rechargeable by a lithium ion on the inside of it, it would be perfect. I don't know why I'm shaking that. I'm about to pour. All right. We're pouring in 40 milliliters to have an even split. If you want to prevent air bubbles, pour high and pour slow. It stretches it out just a little bit, and it should prevent it from carrying your air bubbles from one cup to the other. But realistically, you know, it's not perfect, so just do what you can. I will say this shit looks so sparkly right now. If we just kept them clear, they would be super sparkly dice. Alright, that's about 40. So there's so much built up on the side of this now. This one's only showing as having 30. So we definitely lost some in the transfer there, but it's okay. It's slowly starting to come back down. We'll just, no, yeah, no, yeah, no. Yeah, no. This is why we did 80. Because of these losses, so no big deal. Alright, so we're going to do black first, and then the orange. Now I will use the small stick to stir the one with less. I don't like to use too much alcohol ink, but this stuff should do the job. Let's do 3 drops to start. One of them hit the side because I'm fucking stupid. Alright, let's do 4. Alright, 4. And let's stir it. In fact, we're going to use the small stick for this one, and we're going to use the bigger thing for the pigment. This pigment is a little bit harder to blend. Alright. This thing also does not have nearly as much oomph when it comes to stirring something that's thick, so... And perhaps its battery is also dying. Just scrape the sides a bit. I'm just going to put this down on the table because I think my hand is blocking it. You can probably just see the color take effect a little bit better this way. But as you can see, it's getting dark. It's not getting black. And yes, this thing definitely does add lots of bubbles to it. So I'm going to bust out a popsicle stick to really get the stuff that's on the sides, because this thing is definitely in need of another AAA battery. I guess I'm going to have to go lefty for the stirring so that you guys can see it as it happens. Just my hand holding it in place would definitely block it. As Drew said, it's so shiny. Alright. So that is the color we have. There's a lot of bubbles in it, which is making it look a little bit more transparent than it's going to be. It's also very shiny. I am going to drop just the tiniest dab of pigment into it, because when I look at it from the top, I can absolutely see straight through it. And I want to have a bit more of a translucency to it. So I'm just going to use a different popsicle stick, and I'm going to take a small amount, because when you're still trying to be able to see through it, you do not want to use a lot of pigment at all. In fact, I have way too much on that. That's good. Alright. We're just going to drop that in there. It all wound up on the fucking popsicle stick, so I might have well just used the other one to stir it. But hey, that might be a good thing. We're going to scooch this out of the way and cap it, because if someone were to sneeze right now, it would be a fucking disaster. Yeah, cool. This is perfect. So we got our black ready to go. We're 11 minutes in. We started mixing stuff at like 2 minutes, I think. 1 minute. No, maybe I think it was like 10 seconds in. So we still have 30 minutes left on this pot life before it might get a little bit goopy. Also, when it gets goopy, like honey, syrupy, it's really good for mixing colors, because it will not blend as well, which is kind of what most people are going for when they're mixing colors. Alright, now we have way more of a translucency to it. It looks like there's like texture to it, and that's going to look really good. So we're going to go with that. I'm going to wipe this thing off on this side. Put it on my handy dandy paper towel. Alright, our black is ready to pour. So while we do the orange, we're going to put pipettes in. I'm going to squeeze the shit out of them. Set them in, let them go. This is the patented Ribonator technique. So these are basically prepping for loading up your dice molds. And while you take one out and start squeezing it, you put another one in. So that's good to go. Now it's time for the orange, and we are going with straight up Tangerine Dream. I'm going to use the opposite end of my popsicle stick that I use the pigment for, and we're going to do a decent chunk, like a hefty chunk. That's a lot. Fuck yeah. Alright, and we're just going to manually stir this. We're not going to worry about the other things. I lied, I'm going to use the stir stick. Alright, it is clear with some on it. Let's see how it mixes. Stir stick is also very adept at cleaning off the sides. We're going to mix this for 30 full seconds. Try and break up any of the excess pigment, any of the clumping that might have happened when it got dropped in there. Gonna get the sides, gonna get the bottom. Again, not gonna worry about bubbles because we have a pressure pot. These dice are gonna be more of a black base with an orange accent because we have more black, but it should still work out. I think it takes like 40 to 50 milliliters of resin to do a full set of 7. So we always want to have a little bit of excess for the cap molds for the top of it. Which said, when do you add the purple paper stuff? I was supposed to add it when I stirred it. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I need to go back and do that. My bad. I totally forgot. That's why it's great that I'm streaming this. Alright, the orange is ready to go. As you can see, it's like a really, really, really pretty orange. Hopefully you can see that. My hand covers up so much shit. Learning all this fun stuff. There we go. Cool. So that is stirred. Let's mix in the purple stuff. We're gonna squeeze these pipettes out. Also, something worth mentioning, which I did not state earlier, is that when you're worried about having bubbles in there, you can literally just let your resin sit for like a minute, and since it's still very liquidy, your bubbles will surface, and you can just use a lighter to pop them. I'm going to use one of my spare cups to hold those. And the bubbles are like right on top here, so I'm just going to use my lighter really fast. I'm just going to get rid of them. I mean, I'm going to put more bubbles in there realistically, but it never hurts to pop bubbles when you can. Cool. All right. So let's get a brand new stir stick for this, because this shit is messy. All right, so we take off the cardboard that holds it down. We're going to take a single sheet if possible. Set it down. I really wish my fan wasn't on, but we're going to see what happens with this. Before I do anything else, I am returning the piece of cardboard to the top. I am rubber banding it back together, which is hard to do with gloves on. We're going to get it done. I do not want this shit flying everywhere, and we're going to put it away. Cool. Now we're going to peel this like a fucking slice of Munster cheese that's got too much paper between them. As you can see, it's beautiful and shiny, and if it crumples or crinkles in the slightest, it will start to crumble. So we're going to try and get this to get in here. Even by touching it with my hands, it will start to disintegrate. It's called foil paper, and it certainly acts like it. Alright. The thing that sucks about foil paper is it will stick to the side of your cup, but realistically, I'm just going to push that shit down and scramble it. You do have to stir it quite a bit to prevent it from being super chunky. But if you stir it enough, it basically turns into what is small glitter. I know some people don't like it because sometimes the chunks are a little bit too like heavy. But that said, just stir it more. Like as you stir it, even while it's in the resin, it just fucking shreds, dude. Yeah, this looks fucking dope. I'm so glad you reminded me about the purple. Also, with all the time I wasted yesterday and leaving my dice out for like an extra hour without the pressure pot, I am fully confident that I don't really need to rush too hard on these. So we can get a nice quality product. Feel bad that my hand is covering everything. I'm trying to figure out the best ways to do this while you folks can see. I'm hoping you can see that. But it's definitely got the shiny purple shit everywhere now. It's a full page of it. And it's going to look really, really good. And this stuff is light enough where it will suspend within the resin rather than like glitter, where if it's too big, it'll sink or in some cases float. So, which said pretty indeed. All right, cool. So now we use the same pipettes to suck up resin. Just make them fart really fast. And then we're going to put our pipettes into our orange ones. Actually, we're going to burn off the bubbles on our orange. Yeah, we're not going to do any foil paper for this one because we won't be able to see it because it is opaque. I did a gold foil paper on an opaque blue. Actually, I have it right here. Yeah, this one has a full sheet of paper. You can actually see on the tube just the littlest bit that there's like one little fragment of it. You can kind of see it reflecting, but there's a full fucking page on this thing, and you can't see any of it but that tiny little spot on the tube. So pipettes. All right, those are going to suck up. Black ones are ready to go, and they got purple stuff in them. Does not matter which one you start with whatsoever. Because we're going to try and have like 2 colors, what I'm going to do is squeeze a little bit of the black in there, then some of the orange on top, then some black. I'm going to do that for one of them. Then the next one, I'm just going to fill them up at the same time. See how that goes. So while I'm doing that, we'll let the orange one fill up. So this first one we're doing is a D10. So I really only want to fill this like a third of the way, which is kind of hard to tell. But that looks good. Again, my hand is blocking it. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Alright. So I'm going to use my right hand for this. And when it comes to having like this solid color of the orange, I'm not really worried about it mixing with the black, because if it does, it's not going to take on like a different color. You're just going to see orange swirling around inside the black. And it's sort of just sitting on top. I mean, even if it sits on top in this case, it could still sink to the bottom, but if that does happen, it's just going to look super good. So now that I have like a nice coat, I'm just sort of letting it fill up to about 2/3. Then I'm going to top it off with the black. And then the black will probably mix down into it, causing a nice little swirl effect. It's going to be really fun to take these out of the molds. The thing that sucks, though, is we have to wait 24 hours to take them out. So they probably won't be able to come out until 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Or excuse me, 9 p.m. Pacific time. Because I don't want to demold them early. Or I could just stream it on Monday and give them a 48-hour cure. Again, I'm going with my left hand, which you need to not do, so that you guys can see at least something. So I'm definitely moving the pipette back and forth rather than letting it all hit one spot. So I don't want to like force it to sink. I want it to spread out as I move around and find the edge so that this thing has layers to it, like an onion, like an ogre. And typically whatever I want my top layer to be is what I'm going to make have the excess on the cap as well. And I have a very good feeling these are going to come out to be super pretty. Because I can already see some of the swirl effect happening. I let it bevel and bubble a bit, and then I put the excess on the lid. I just go over what's going to be the top number, which is always the lowest number. Now that there's that excess, putting this back in here. Flipping this, I should only have to just flip it based off of how I had them all set up. I do check it to make sure. Sure enough, that's what I need to do. And then they are called squish molds for a reason. You got that excess, you press it down, it squishes out the sides. It is sealed up. I can tell there's going to be a flake that's going to be on the outside of it. That is okay though. So that is sealed. It's going to drip down. It's going to put a ring on the desk. That is why we have the thing we do. Alright. I'm going to scooch that. I'm actually just going to put that onto my insert because I don't actually need to let it hit the desk. I can just put it onto this thing, which I will. I'm just going to set that up right off camera, and I'll show it to you when they're all on there. Alright, moving on. This one I'm going to do orange and black at the same time. I'm going to try and do more black than orange. So my hand might cover what I'm doing. So let's test it. Trial and error, y'all. I hope you're okay with it. Snark says, oh my god, I have an excuse to get the digital pipette. And Demetra says, you're making a black and orange Slurpee. Gotta have Hires pictures of these dice. I'm stoked to see your post on these. Also, you making your own page for this project. Yeah, I absolutely need to. I haven't really thought about it too much until I was like, I should stream this. And I was like, I should probably put them on the channel. And now I'm like, ugh, I need socials for all this shit. Alright, so I'm going to try and put them on opposite sides and just slowly let them start dripping in. I don't want to like put them in too quickly because then they start to merge. Again, they could just wind up merging as they sit because it's not like two liquids next to each other don't just eventually blend over. But As much as I can in this moment, I kind of want to have it just be a line that separates the two of them. If you see one of them starting to fill in more than the other one, then just go slower on that side. Alright, these are going pretty well. Usually it takes like 2 full pipettes to fill most dice. The D20 needs like 2.5, sometimes 3 pipettes, depending on if they're full. This one has like a nice separation. I hope if it does blend, it does so in like a yin-yang sort of way. That like went all the way up with a line on it, which is beautiful. Now we're going to do the same thing on the lid. Yep, this orange one's just about out. Now when I flip this and squish it down, is actually going to be opposite sides, which could ruin it, or it could look awesome. Let's hope it looks awesome. All right, 2 dots at the top. There's going to be opposites. Ooh yeah. The first time I used my squish molds, I did not press down hard enough because I don't know, I was being a bitch, basically. And my D12's one did not fill out. It's actually this one. I tried to repair it with more and came out all bubbly and looking like shit. So, hard to see. I apologize. Alright, moving on. This is the D12. This is the one that I had problems with last time. I'm going to go heavy orange, then a middle layer. I'm going to do like a quarter orange, 50% black, and then a quarter orange. We'll see if the orange on the top sinks. The 12 for this one is just going to fucking glow orange. Maybe with like a few little specks of black sunken through it. Alright. This one's forming like a pool in the middle of the orange. It looks pretty fucking sweet, actually. I'm just going to let it keep dripping in the middle here and just slowly spread to the edges. And when it gets like halfway up the face of the dice side that's going to touch the 1, I'll switch back to orange. I have no idea what the D12 is going to look like. The D12 could look like shit. There is so much paper in this one too. This is our wild card dice for sure. This one's either going to look fucking awful or amazing. When you get to the end of like the pipette, like sometimes there's just not a fucking knob left to squeeze and there's still shit in there. Alright. As the Matrix says, food for thought. I just ate a fortune cookie and my fortune was one day you will hold a piece of paper money for the last time and not even realize it. It's deep. I remember my friend's dad used to say, like, there's a day that's the last day you'll ever go outside and play with your friends, and no one ever knows when that day is. And he seemed way more sad about it than the rest of us. I was just like, going outside and playing was fun, but like, I get to go to bars now. It's like, I went outside to play and build snowmen and shit because I couldn't go to bars when I was younger. And then I got older and I was like, bars suck. Alright. The orange has made its way to the top. This one's going to look crazy. Adding some to the lid. So for the rest of these, I got 4 more. I'm going to try and be heavier on the black than I am on the orange because we do have less of the orange. But overall, they should be okay. I'm pretty sure the D12 is lined up. This one always freaks me out because I thought that last time too when it didn't work. So, alright, that's good. Moving on. 3 down, 4 to go. each dice is like unique. They're never all going to come out looking the exact same unless you do a single pigment, and there's nothing wrong with that if you do. But like, I really do enjoy having, you know, each dice having a different swirl effect and looking just entirely different than the next. It's I think it's fun, and I think people like dice sets like that a little bit more because they have more character. I'm gonna fill these up and then like switch them over on occasion. This is the D20, so this is the one you'll be using the most. Also, it'll probably take 3 full pipettes for this one. Alright, now it's about half and half. I'm just going to start slowly moving along the sides to give it a swirl effect in the middle. Again, it probably will mix more and not really have an exact swirl effect, but we can always hope. Alright, I'm out of orange. Alright, I'm going to reload on the black. I'm going to finish this one off with more of a swirl, and hopefully our D20 is super pretty. It really does help having very different and distinct colors. Because, like, if you do any 2 colors that could, you know, combine to form a separate color, it absolutely will. Unless they're very, very, very much already starting to set. And then that's just an experiment I have not done yet. Alright. Should be enough for the lid. This is that moment that I told you guys that I hate where I'm like, alright, which fucking one is it? It's this one. Alright. Oh shit. Alright. Moving on. Just gonna try and do a straight up half and half. This time with the bottom half black. Again, the orange will absolutely seep into the black, but we're not looking for a perfect divide. We're looking for like that midline swirl. Also helps when these things are clear when you're doing this, because like you can kind of just pick them up and check and see, like, is that half? Yeah, it's about half. Just want a tiny bit more. I always like, if I'm trying to do a half and half, if I have one that's just like a bit more prominent of a color, try and do slightly less of that, because I always feel like it's just going to wind up taking over a little bit when it merges, when it assimilates. We're starting to get just a tiny bit syrupy, and we're at 34 minutes, so that will bode well for the colors not merging, but it does make it slightly harder to squeeze out of these pipettes. Realistically, though, I think we're in pretty good shape. All the bubbles floated to the top. We burned them off as best we could. I should say not all the bubbles, but we're gonna be okay. Alright, just a little bit of excess for the lid, and then this one's done. I love pigment too, because as you like just pour the pigment out and you do a pattern, like you can actually see the swirls, which is just super pretty. I don't know how well you can actually see the swirling happening on that, but I love it. Alright, slightly worried there might be a bubble in the middle of that one, but hopefully the pressure pot can take care of it. Alright, 2 more, and it's the D4 and the D6, which are the easiest to do and kind of the most fun. So the D6, I'm going to go side by side and try and go all the way to the top. We have more than enough pigment. Excuse me, we have more than enough resin for it. I don't know how well this line will be maintained, but it is a pretty solid 50-50. Alright. God damn, my hands are just always in the fucking way. I straight up need to get a top-down camera, though. Like, there's no doubt about it. Or I need to just get a different setup or a different mount for the camera I do have. So the lid, I need to do opposite sides because I do want this to be uniform. Probably a bit too much for the lid, but that's definitely way better than not enough when it comes to this shit. Yeah, it still lined up pretty well, so. Right, D6 is done. Leave the D4 left. This one we're just gonna straight up swirl the shit out of it. Got plenty of resin left. Alright, I'm just gonna start like this and then just zigzag the fuck out of it. Just gonna let it seep in on the sides. It's a bit more black on the top than orange, and then I'm just gonna put more orange and black on the cap. Cool. Alright, this one actually got cross-contaminated with some orange, so we're just going to put that one off to the side. And put the lid on. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. The full set of dice. There you go. Those come out, they just need to be polished and painted. That said, what color would we ink them? Well, to figure that out, let's take our trusty sprue mold. Before I fill it, I tend to put it in this. I'm not going to, so we can just sort of watch it fill. It is a D20. I'm going to put in a layer of black, then a layer of orange. It's best to have your spot that has your sprue hole at the topmost point. That way there's not an air bubble that gets trapped in there, because they will get trapped in there. Even with the pressure pot, it could be too big of a bubble. So I'm just going to watch that fill up. It's about as much as I want to fill that one. Before switching over. This one I'm just going to push like right into the other resin and just spurt it out into it. So it spreads out. There's going to be a spot where it's like heavily orange, and it's going to spread out into the rest of it. The orange is definitely getting thick. You can see it's going a lot. It's leaving the pipette a lot slower, but it is leaving. It's also coating the sides a lot more. Alright, let's finish this thing off. do have a bubble. I want to guide out. Sometimes you can use the lid of your pipette. Sometimes you can push, or excuse me, you can use your pipette to kind of suck that thing out. You just like push out until you have enough where you can pull some of it back. And it will pull up the resin that's right around it along with your bubble. There we go. Got almost the entire bubble. It's starting to flash out the side a little bit. You can see it leaking. That's why it really is better to have it in a solo cup. Still a little bit of a bubble in there. I really wish it would come out. I don't know if it will, but again, this is another reason why I don't really like using the sprue method too much. Pop that right down in there. We're going to put this on the tippy top. Those are all ready to go. We're going to switch gloves. I do not want to get resin on my silicone or in my silicone in any way, shape, or form. The thing that sucks is this is now dirty, and I did want to use this to mix the silicone, so I'm going to take a quick sec to clean that with a paper towel, nothing big. And then if it doesn't look clean enough, I can just switch it to the other stir stick. It comes with two. In fact, I'm just going to switch it. I'm not even going to bother trying to clean it. I'll do that off camera. Cleaning is boring. Just pop that right out. Pop the other head right in. These were dirty as fuck last night. I cleaned them, so they were ready to go today. There we go. Set this over here. Let's use another measuring cup. Unfortunately, you do use a lot of measuring cups, and it is a lot of plastic, but there's just kind of no way to avoid it. There is reusable things that you can do. Cleaning them is a nightmare in a lot of cases. It doesn't really work. They don't really get clean. So it is unfortunate, but you can do what you can to reduce it. You can try and use reusable stuff whenever possible. You can buy recycled plastic stuff, which is what I try and do with the smaller ones if possible. You can buy Envirotex resin if you're trying to be environmentally conscious rather than Art and Glow. I think it does come out clearer. I don't think it comes out as hard. I feel like even with like a perfect one-to-one mixture, sometimes it comes out a little bit tacky, but for the most part, it's very, very close in quality, and it is environmentally safe. I buy Mad Mica's mica powder because that is supposed to be better for the environment. I think a lot of I've heard, I should say, not I think, I heard mica powder is sourced in a lot of ways through child labor, and Mad Mica specifically is not. So that is something that if I can avoid, I want to. Also, Mad Mica's has a ton of sweet fucking colors, so they're one of the best places to go shop around. Get myself a new set of gloves. It's almost 9 o'clock, y'all. You have been hanging out with me for 3 hours, and we are about to be done. Clip says, going to the store, I need some Cool Ranch. Oh, I'll be watching, not much talking. No worries. Snark says, CJ just lost my 8 streak in Hades. Bob said, Breaking Bad, scary-ish. That's funny. And the Snark says, thank you for being so responsible. I do try. If I can, I would like to. Sometimes you do stuff you don't even know like what kind of harm you're causing. So the first stuff I bought was Art and Glow. Then I bought Envirotex, of which I've got a fuck ton, and I have some other pigments that I got from like Michaels, and as soon as I heard about the child labor thing, I was just like, fuck that. Like I wanted an excuse to get some Mad Micas anyway, so I don't know how much it's going to take to fill that up. It should not be a ton, so I'm going to try and just do let's say 60, 30, and 30. Might not be enough for a lid. It might not coat it all the way. Let's just be safe because I really don't want to have to mix extra like I did last time. I mean, 80 is up to about here and spread out evenly. I want to about there. So we're going to try and do 100 of dragon skin. I don't know if I have enough is the thing. So we are about to find out. I like to pour the thicker one first, which is usually the yellow one, I think. Yep. So we're going to 100 just to be safe. It will not hurt us to have a lid that's too big, but it will hurt us to have a lid that's too small. So going up to 50. This stuff only has a pot life of 25 minutes. So we're going to use the 5 minutes to stir it. Then we're going to use hopefully less than 5 minutes to pour it, pop it on my insert, get it in the pressure pot, walk this thing down to the garage. Might be a little bit more than 50, but we'll be okay. Yeah, it's good. Alright, taking it up to a hundo. It's also very easy to work with stuff that's a one-to-one mixture. The sort of clear stuff, dragon skin, I really like dragon skin. It's also very durable, and it's very bouncy. If you want to make bouncy balls, dragon skin is apparently very good to make it out of. I've seen one video where Ribinator made a giant D20, which I do have a mold for over here. A giant D20 out of dragon skin, although you have to put a bunch of weird stuff on your silicone to make sure your silicone doesn't stick to the silicone. Which is why I basically haven't done it yet, is because it's a very involved process, but maybe I'll do that on stream one of these days. But alright. Starting at 45. Alright. My timer is at 46 minutes and 45 seconds. So at 48:15, is that right? 49:15, we'll reverse the direction so we can stir it both ways for 2.5 minutes. And then we'll pour. I am sorry if this is loud. Blizzard says, I am glad to learn something new. I need to see what brand I have and pay attention in the future. Thank you. You're welcome. I had no clue until I was watching Ribinator, and he had people in his comments like shitting on him super hard, just for using stuff that wasn't like environmentally safe or that there was better alternatives for, and he was just like, I didn't know that, and he just bought different shit. So it's kind of funny, we had someone send us a message. It wasn't mean or anything, but it was stern, because we read a story that had the word gypsy in it. And Robin and I both really didn't think much of it, and they were just like, hey, gypsy is a very offensive term. And I was like, oh, I really, honestly, truly did not realize that. It's like, if we would have known that, there's no way we would have said it. Like, there's a lot of things we leave out of stories, even if we're reading them off of, like, Creepypasta or, you know, any of those forums. That just might be dicey, and that was something we didn't think of, and I was happy the person did reach out. And I let them know personally, too, like, the reason I did not think anything of it is because there's a boxer named Tyson Fury who's nicknamed the Gypsy King, and he's very proud of his heritage, and he's like, made a very big point to talk about that. And so it didn't really occur to me that, you know, it might, you know, offend someone who's, like, from the same heritage and the same background, but that doesn't mean it won't, and it doesn't make anyone else's feelings less valid. So I was very pleased that she reached out. I just wanted to let her know, like, hey, this is why it basically got the green light, is because we didn't really think of it because of our exposure in the past to it. But, like, moving forward, it's like, it doesn't hurt to not say something, you know? It doesn't hurt to not use the word. So it's more than easy to fix that. Alright, 20 more seconds, we reverse the other direction. Again, my hand is in the fucking way. Reversing. Robin said, I like the way you work it. No diggity. I had such a good day. Such a good last 2 days with my weight loss. And then today I was doing really well too, and my meals were going well, and my calories were coming in lower, and I use these meat thermometers that you can like put into your meat and then put on the grill and monitor like things that they cook today. Just because I want to see if they work, because I got them, you know, and I was just like, oh, I need to make sure. And so I did have a big dinner, and I'm feeling it right now, man. I'm feeling like groggy, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna weigh in heavier tomorrow, and it's so annoying. Like, even if I were to go and try and do like an hour of cardio right now, I know I'm still gonna weigh in heavy. But it's okay. 49.15 was the reversal. That means 51.45 will be the end. So we're about a minute away. And then the ASMR of pouring. Yeah, yesterday when I was making the molds that are to my left here, and the one that's directly in front of me, the ones to my... I was trying to make them all out of the same silicone. I figured that each cup was going to take 30 milliliters of silicone. I had 8 cups. That was 240. And then I figured that thing over there would take around 100, so I did 350. What I really wound up needing was 500. And so once I ran out on this side, on the left side, I realized I needed to like mix an entirely new batch for the bento box. And I mixed it, and I was still fucking short, so I had to mix a third batch. And by then, it was just like the things to my left were already setting. I knew they were gonna have fucking bubbles. I was miserable. I might have to redo this D12 over here, but I'm glad that all of them didn't turn out fucked up. I'm grateful. You can hear that this thing is like, let me die. Alright, we're at 5 minutes. I'm just going to let as much silicone spin off of this as possible. It looks like snot. It's like you see it slowly coming off, then every like outside paddle finally is just like bleh. Stop, let it drip. Spin it a little bit more. Alright. We are ready to pour. Now this I don't really have to clean. Like with a paper towel. I can just let that cure. And then in, 4 hours come in here and just peel it right off, and it's oh so satisfying. Let's line this up so it looks good. Check it again to make sure I didn't miss anything on the... I was gonna say wax paper. Jesus Christ, I'm tired. On the hot glue. Still looks good. Surfaces are all really clean. There doesn't look to be any overlap of the Vaseline. Cool. Time to pour. Let's see if I can center it a bit and zoom in a bit more. Yeah. Alright. Ledger says I need to watch Pitch Perfect now. Glitch said chips achieved. Robin said solid movie choice. Now one girl said LOL, I watch it whenever it's on TV. Drives my daughter nuts. I fucking love that movie. Alright. We're going to pour from the outside and just draw a line across it. We're also going to pour high and slow, because this thing will have bubbles in it. They will get smashed out by the pressure pot, but it really doesn't hurt to try and do as much as you possibly can to eliminate them. Also try and not pour directly onto the face of the numbers. You want it to like slowly seep over the number. That way it doesn't like trap any bubbles inside the number, because that sucks. It's also another reason why I'm making like full set molds like this one is this is the first one I've ever made, because I've been nervous that if I fucked it up, basically you have one number in your set that's never going to work. You have to make a separate mold for it. And then slowly, as it just starts to overtake the numbers, and it's just going to be seeping towards the sides, I'm just going to increase the rate of pour. Make it a little bit higher. You can see it contouring in the tape to like the beveled lip. I'm trying to slip down the tape, which it's going to, but it is going to hit that hot glue and not be able to go any further. Realistically, right where it's at right now is the shortest I would have wanted the lid, so we probably could have got away with doing 80 as opposed to 100, but in this case, it's seriously is better safe than sorry because there was not a lot of excess. Pretty sure you can use pigment in silicone too. Well, obviously you can, but like in this specific silicone, just to make it look pretty. I do like to have them as transparent as possible, even though dragon skin does not really come out that transparent. I want to see what it looks like on the inside. Like sometimes I'll take the molds out and I'll immediately realize like, oh fuck, there's a problem in there. And I don't know. The sooner I see that, the better. Grabbing the leftover popsicle stick, and I'm just going to try and sweep the sides in here, get all of it out. I don't want any waste. The nice thing is that once the molds are done being made, which is, you know, imminent, then the next time I stream it'll be like, hey, what 3 sets of dice do we want to make? Which is going to be fucking sweet. I think I'm going to make next time a set of dice that are Fallout themed. So I'll probably do like that blue that's on their uniforms. And then paint them, or ink them, excuse me. Use proper terminology here, geez. And then ink them with that yellow from the lettering. I think that would be sharp. I think it would look good. Alright. Once this thing's done, I'm going to let that cure on the table so I can just yank out that piece of silicone. My gloves are not that messy. We're going to zoom out all the way. Cool. I'm going to put this up so y'all can see. This is why I made the silicone. It's got that orange already seeping out, which looks super awesome. The black might not be as black as we wanted, but I still think it's going to look good. This one, I'm actually going to try and put on the bottom level, but the tape is just too high. So the open top it is. The more you fuck with your tape, the more your lid is going to be deformed. Which you really don't want, but it doesn't hurt anything if it's not, you know, shaped perfectly. Like Snark said earlier, it's custom. And then I'm going to put this one on the bottom. So, cool. These come off. Going to put this in my pressure pot and bring my pressure pot up onto the camera. You can see as I seal it. Alright. That thing has it in there. It's more than enough space. Also, the top of this does have like a bevel to it. Also, with a lot of stuff when you customize it, you customize a painting pot, which is kind of a pain in the ass. For the ones that are already done though, like they already have this particular piece in there where as you're dispersing the air, when you're putting it in there, it shoots out to the sides, versus when you do that with a pressure pot that was designed for painting, where it shoots it straight down to try and push the shit out, which will splatter your molds. You do want to tie these on here, or I should say tighten these on here, like you would a tire, where it's like opposite ends, because it does sort of raise up when you start to tighten one down. You also want to tighten the fuck out of them. So it's another reason I really like this particular brand, because these wing nuts are fucking huge. They can really get a good grip and just squeeze it down. I know there's like things where you're like, don't tighten it too much, you know, it's gonna be hard to open. That is absolutely what you want if you have a pressure pod, because the tighter it is, the less likely the air is gonna leak out. And that is what you're going for. Typically, before I get started, I will go downstairs, go into the garage, and turn on my air compressor, get it to around 80 psi, That way I don't have to do it at night. That way if anyone's in the house, air compressors are fucking loud. I don't want to wake anyone up. So, all right, we did a set of dice. We did that mold lid, and we got it all done in around an hour. So pretty good stuff as far as pot time goes. This is going downstairs, and yeah, I'm done for the night, y'all. Thank you so much. It was fun to show you all this stuff, to take it out of the pressure pot, to kind of explain stuff as I went through it, so I wasn't, feeling like I was going to screw something up. So I appreciate you folks joining me, and I'm definitely going to do this more often. I won't stream every single time I do dice, but I will try, hand to God, because if I'm going to be sitting at this table, I might as well just leave the setup exactly how it is and then just hit stream. So thank you one more time, and everyone have a good night.